Since then, the fate of the main hero changed. The white fur managed to defeat the other. The girls sitting near the hero inside the robot watched admiringly how strong he was. Once a school excursion was approaching and the hero was incredibly looking forward to that day. He sat on the bus and clenched his fists on his knees. There was one girl whom the hero had loved since first grade, and that day he was going to confess his feelings to her. The girl sitting next to him asked the boy why he was nervous. She immediately told him, "Don't say that he is a coward." The boy froze and began to stutter, saying he was not nervous. And she immediately cut him off. "Don't lie to me. He always looked like that when he was worried." This girl sitting next to him is his own childhood friend who could not understand the boy's feelings. It turns out she technically helps him with his plan. She asked if he really confessed to that girl. She said that the girl is not only for their class but for the whole school, one of the few beauties in their town. However, this is shirt Yuki Yui, or he just forgot. The man in front looked at Yui and said he knows everything and that this is the only chance for her friends. If something happens, let him see what he will say. The girl did not calm down, insisting that she helps him for free. By the way, how could he say such a thing? He was overwhelmed. He got nervous, scared, and apologized, assuring that it would not happen again. Suddenly, something strange began to happen with the bus. The schoolchildren screamed frightened and decided that it was an earthquake. The bus kept shaking while the students screamed and panicked. Some demanded explanations about what was happening. Others ordered each other to hold on tightly. Minami Kenshi shouted at all the students to stay calm and hold on to the handrails. The bus stopped and found itself right in front of a huge palace. The students noticed that not all of them were there and began whispering, asking what had happened. The hero looked in shock at the place where he found himself and wondered if this was Japan. The bus doors opened. People in knight's armor jumped out and ordered everyone to get off. The children began to exit, and the hero noticed something that instantly closed. A giant robot grabbed their bus and threw it into the air. Nagisa hid behind Yudo, looking scared and calling him. The hero tried to calm her down, saying that everything was fine. It seemed these people did not want to harm them, although he himself was not particularly sure of that. They approached closer, apologizing for such rude behavior they had shown. In front of them stood a man who introduced himself as the manager of this bombing coordination center, although he himself believed that Earthlings called this place differently, another world. The school children were shocked. The teacher asked the man if he knew what had happened to them. The man replied, of course he knew they were called to this place to be sold to others. Everyone around could not understand why such things were happening to them. The man explained that this world uses ancient tools called bellows. Construction, transportation, and many other affairs use bellows. These bellows are powered by a special type of energy and operate through connection. He said that in this world only a few Fabra have such energy and that pilots are generally scarce. The instructor asked what that meant. The manager said that these Earthlings have such energy, the potential Rudia, and there are many such people, so they conducted a lot of research and calculations to call them. A woman shouted that this was terribly selfish. A guard attacked the woman from behind and pressed her to the ground. The manager said that he was truly sorry, but the status of such pilots in their world is very high, and he did not think they would have a bad life. He added that in any case everything would be decided tomorrow, and they should pray to have a high Rudia rate and rest. A little later in the palace, a guard was watching the doors. Inside sat schoolchildren. One boy Yuta addressed and asked if he was interested in the price of this weapon. The hero was surprised at how quickly Haranishi adapted. He replied that they would be treated better if the value was high. Of course, he himself would like the value to be high. Haranishi glanced aside and asked Mikako what he thought. Mikake, weighing the words mentally, said that he had no idea what it was. Maybe that man was just leading them on. But if so, then Yuki most likely has the highest potential. Everyone turned to the girl the hero had noticed because he saw no clue, but he was sure Yuki Yui had the highest result. The next day, the schoolchildren lined up near a huge machine. The first schoolboy passed the test. Someone from the crowd shouted that Rudia's potential was 12,000 and that he was a Highlander. They rejoiced when someone came with 10,000, but that was only the first. Eventually, someone with over 20,000 might appear. The hero saw Ivanami from the football team and realized 10,000 Rudia is a very high value. Then he decided a double Highlander is one whose values exceed 20,000, and judging by the reactions, it was probably something very rare. When the next student stood up, the man laughed and shouted that he had 29,000 and that he was a double Highlander, and it was strange how close he was to a triple. They said, Imagine, they already have 2 Highlanders, maybe this time they'll be lucky and hit the jackpot. What? Then Haranishi stood up and the device showed 3,300. The man repeatedly asked, increasingly irritating those present. After that, the indicators jumped, 2,200, 2,500, 3,800. When confident Yuki EU stepped on the device, it showed that her Rudia potential was 36,000 and that she was a triple Highlander. The hero thought the girl was completely different. Everyone around began to applaud. The hero wondered if the triple Highlander was really that good. They applauded as if it were some concert, but the hero was even more interested in what would happen to Nagisa. She was standing in front of him in line. When her turn came, the result was announced 6,500, and they said she was half a Highlander. The hero decided that 5 people had already crossed the 5,000 mark, which means Nagisa's indicator is good. The girl, noticing his gaze, smiled. He smiled back at her. Finally, it was his turn. He thought about how these numbers meant everything in this world, and still despite everything it left him curious. When he stood under the car, the man suddenly exclaimed in surprise. The man announced that the hero's result was 2. Everyone asked again. Another man looked at the numbers and declared that there could be no mistake, and his combat potential really equals 2. The man went on stage and announced the start of the auction, and the crowd erupted with joyful shouts and applause. The first to come on stage was the one whose potential was 12,000 Highlander ore, and the starting price was 10 million gold. People began to bargain, 30 million, then someone shouted that they would give 50 million, and someone else raised the bid up to 100 million. The hero shuddered from the auction. He had never seen anything like it before. The host announced that it seemed no one else would make a bid, so the lot was sold to the Valkyria Empire for 160 million gold. Shirayuki, speak up. At this moment, they would no longer be able to see each other. The Ruble Kingdom was handed 1.2 billion gold. Everything happened so that no one was thinking about the school excursion anymore. The host announced that the main event of the evening was already underway, and that their greatest pearl was coming on stage, a triple Highlander with a potential of 36,000 rudia. The starting price immediately reached 1 billion. In a moment 2 billion, then 2.5 billion, and it was completely different from before. Someone offered 12 billion for number 3. Everyone instantly fell silent. The host asked if anyone else was placing bids. After a short pause, he announced, the Empire of Iria was sold for 12 billion. Others whispered that Arish was recently let back into the game. They supposedly had the highest mine, but nothing could be done. Someone heard they had uncovered new deposits of orichalcium. The next batch, a half Highlander with 6,500 units of rhodium potential. The hero watched Nagisa. The girl looked at Yuta and smiled, saying goodbye to him, while people in the hall placed bets. The sum reached 20 million gold. The host announced the victory of the Amrian Empire for 20 million gold. The hero recalled his thoughts about Shuriaka's confession during the school excursion. He did not want this, but it was fate. The host announced that now they would show a very sad example of a pilot. This is not something to put up for auction, but since these are the rules, they are obliged to put him up for auction and announce weapon potential 2, and it is completely useless. But maybe someone would want to take a souvenir. When the audience laughed, they wondered if such potential could even exist. Everyone laughed at the hero while he stood on the stage. Even his classmates began to mock him, calling him pathetic and laughing. The hero felt hopeless. Yui and Nagisa looked at him. The host asked if really no one would be found even for 1 coin. Then a man stood up and said he would take it, but would not give even a single gold coin, and in general offered only 2 nuts. The hero was loaded into a cart with bars and he drove away. Nagisa noticed the cart moving away. When she turned around, a luxurious carriage was already waiting for her, and calling Yuta, the coachman immediately addressed him. Near evening. In the middle of the field stood a lonely wooden house, and a man roughly pushed the hero, ordering him to come inside. He announced that this was now Yuta's house. Yuta turned around and saw other people there. Yuta asked about food, and he was told that he had already been fed today and had to wait until tomorrow. The hero asked if he was joking, but the door closed. He sat down by the wall and someone approached him, calling out. Nearby appeared a girl in rags and asked if he was hungry. The hero immediately noticed the disheveled hair and torn clothes, and only then realized what kind of place this was. This is another world, and they are recruiting new soldiers here. He thought about Nagisa and Tsurayuki, trying to understand what would happen to him next. 2 guards stood by the gate, and one said he heard that someone with the potential of Rudia II had been summoned. The second confirmed, saying he was watching and saw everything from the door. But the man noticed that the arrow seemed to have gone around the circle completely. The second said that was impossible because the device could only assess potential up to 100,000. But the knight decided that his colleague was right, since he had never encountered anyone with a potential of 100,000. At this level, the hero would not even be able to activate the mech in any way. In another place, and at this time, a gigantic mecha towered as if waiting for its moment. The girl handed the hero food and ordered him to take it. The grandmother called Nanami aside, asking if it was not her food for a rainy day, and if she really wanted to give it to the new boy. The girl turned to the old woman and said that hunger is torment, and Nanami knows that. The hero silently looked at the girl. Yuta smiled, thanked her, and said that he was quite satisfied with her sincerity. The girl waved him off. Don't be stupid, because even they don't know if they will be fed tomorrow. The boy froze, asking again if she was serious. The little girl said that they are usually fed once every 3 days and that he better eat what she gives. The boy agreed, thinking that such a small child ended up in such a place. He agreed, but suggested eating together, splitting it in half. The little girl asked again. You just smiled and said that it tastes better when you eat it together with someone. After some time, they were already asleep, and the hero shivered from the cold, not knowing how to fall asleep. Behind him was Nanami. She lay down next to him and pressed against his back. The boy turned around. He did not understand why the girl was next to him. The girl was already asleep behind his back. In the morning, the man went into the stable and told everyone to wake up. It was time to get to work. The hero thought about how he did not want to sleep because he never got enough sleep, but eventually understood what life was like for servants. Nearby, he noticed Nanami. The girl, noticing him, smiled and waved her hand. He wondered if she had lived like this all her life and if she would continue to live like this until her very death. He wanted to do something, but now he was completely useless. The man brought them food and the hero was surprised. For the whole day, such a meager amount. Nanami said that even this was better than nothing. The man casually asked her how she ended up in this place. The girl sadly replied that her mother had sent her here. The boy realized how wrong he was when he asked about it. But Nanami suddenly smiled and said that she would be paid for this for a whole month. That's what they told her, and Nanami was not upset by it, and the hero sighed, but with a smile. When everyone returned to bed, he felt the girl trembling behind his back and asked Nanami if she was okay. He noticed that she began to cry. He apologized to Nanami because he made her remember something bad. The girl said she was fine. She had helped her family, now they could fill their stomachs, so everything was okay. The hero reproached himself, calling himself a fool because her own family had disowned her. Of course, nothing good could come of it. He pressed the girl to himself, hugging her tightly. That night Nanami cried, burying her face in his chest continuously. After that, they seemed to grow even closer. She began to call him differently. The girl rushed to him and showed a doll she had found near the mansion. The boy praised her, saying she seemed to have found a new friend. And that evening, he woke up to a man shouting at Nanami and demanding where she got it from. He accused her of stealing the doll from the mansion and told her to know her place. Yuta rushed to them and ordered him to stop. The hero lied that he found it on the street near the mansion and that the doll was not from there. The man hit Yuta, ordering him not to lie and to return the doll. The man took the doll and walked away, and the girl rushed to the hero. She called him and asked if he was okay. The boy replied that it was nothing. He apologized to Nanami for not being able to protect her friend, but she hugged him and said that she considers Yuta more important. The man smiled, thinking to himself what a good girl she was. A few days passed and the man came out of the shed, saying that there was no more work or food for today. The girl noticed how Yuta was standing by the closed door and called him. The man asked if that man had not closed the door, and the grandmother behind his back said that the reason was the ore level, which is the key to these doors. They were set so that no one with an ore potential below 300 could open them, and here were people with a level below 100, so no one could get out of here. The old woman from that side said that at first it was very unpleasant. The hero realized why everyone lives like that, and he reached for the handle. Suddenly the doors opened. Everyone was amazed by what they saw. A man named Nanami called and said he wanted to run away and asked if she would go with him. The old woman behind him called out to Yudu and asked what his potential was, and he in response also asked what that was. The boys were walking along the embankment, and the hero was talking about what a big city it was and that they could use finding a job. He asked Nanami to wait and promised he would make sure she could fill her belly to the brim. In all places where workers were really needed, the hero was refused only after they heard his combat potential equals 2 and was told to go look elsewhere. They approached the sailor and asked if he needed workers. He was surprised when he heard that his potential equals 2 but still agreed to work on the ship. He explained that everything was simpler than anywhere else, they just needed the ship to set sail. For one trip, they would be given 2 bowls of soup and 3 zlotys and everyone would be satisfied. He led them to a room and said they could sleep there. Inside, there were still a bunch of men, and eventually he ordered them to ask the locals if they had any more questions. One of them noticed the newcomers and asked their names. The guys introduced themselves. The man inquired about the weapon potential, heard the answer, and on the side said, "Better this way than nothing." He pointed to the mechanism and said their job was to turn this big gear wheel, and it would be easier if the level of their weapon was higher, well, as they said. But here, if the level is below 100, it is ultimately extremely difficult. They must be ready. Yuta asked where they could spend the night, and the man said they would eat and sleep in this room. Yuta asked if they could go outside, and the man threw a question at the hero who he thought he considered himself to be. The hero was told that he had boarded the ship again as a servant. The ship raised the anchor and the bell rang. All the men rushed to the mechanism and shouted that they needed to prepare for departure. They began to turn the mechanism, and the ship's engine started working. The boy thought it looked complicated, but he would still do everything he could. He grabbed the lever. Suddenly, the mechanism sharply accelerated and struck the hero in the back. He could not comprehend what it was. Everyone froze in amazement. The ship's propeller instantly sped up. Someone from the deck shouted, not understanding what was happening, and even jumped out, "Wonderful," and ordered not to lower the sails because they would only slow us down. Finally, they arrived in the city, and the man said that everyone had done well, after which he gave each 10 gold coins and allowed them to disembark from the ship. The workers were happy and laughed with joy. The hero asked if they would all just run away as soon as they were free. Another sailor replied that they could not, because if they went somewhere, given their level of weapons and such a ship, this was the best place for people like them to earn money for food. Yuta asked Nanami if she wanted to stay, and she said she wanted to be with him. He clarified if she was sure. After all, they might end up hungry. But despite everything, Nanami wanted to be near him. He smiled and said it was time for them to move on. At that time, somewhere else, a huge mansion. The girl asked what Nagisa's name was. Nagisa Hikari introduced herself to her, and the girl said that she was the second princess, Amria Lanel. Seeing Nagisa's strange expression, he said that of course she would be anxious after all, having just arrived in another world. She was immediately given away, but there was no need to worry because Lanel promised she would be treated like royalty. She said that pilots with great potential are well received wherever they arrive in such a small country as theirs, and that she would definitely be pampered. Nagisa asked if the girl wanted to imply that those below her were treated badly. The princess remembered that there was someone with very low Rudia potential at the auction. Nagisa cried, asking what happened to him, and said she was worried about him. Lionel was surprised. Nagisa confessed that she loves Udon, has been doing so for a very long time. Lanel hugged the girl and promised that she would find that boy and maybe they could take him for themselves. Nagisa asked if it was true, and the princess asked to be given it. A little later, the man sitting on the throne finally noticed the half-Highlander and said he was glad to meet him, introducing himself as the ruler of Amria. Magine, Nagisa introduced herself to him as well. Lionel shouted to her father that Nagisa was worried and he should smile. The man replied that it was his fault, smiled, and the daughter said it looked creepy. Someone nearby asked to introduce her. It was strange that Himari, third princess of this country and also called the wildest, but Himari rejected these words. Lanel asked her where Yukiko was now, and the girl replied that it was not Hirsch, was usually in another place. They went further, and Lionel said it was wonderful. She just wanted to show Nagisa something. Nagisa shuddered upon seeing the huge robot. Lanel screamed for Yukiko to come out and introduce herself. The robot's body began to open. The girl climbed out of the robot and saw a girl who was half Highlander. She introduced herself. Yukiko, first princess, and was glad to have met you. She immediately got down to business and suggested going to see Nagisa's fur. Rasper's magical mecha requires 5,000 Rudia to operate, and its maximum level is 12,000. It has beer ink armor, and its power is air ink, and it is the strongest mecha in their country. Lanel said that even at the highest Rudia level, Yukiko would not be able to activate it. That is why they needed a raft with at least 5,000 rudia potential. Nagisa asked if they were going to use it in wars. Yukihiro replied that supposedly other countries might do such things, but a peaceful state like Amria would not use them for war. Nagisa doubted that it was true. Somewhere there, Yuta called Nanami at the clothing counter. He asked what she wanted, and she asked if he was really sure. She said it was her first time choosing clothes, and she picked one. The seller replied that it would be 2 gold and 20 silver. The boy was surprised to hear about silver. The man finally began to understand the local currency. He paid the seller. Nanami and he had together 17 gold and 80 silver coins. A large loaf of bread costs about 50 silver, and 100 silver equals 1 gold. It seems they might even be lucky enough to find a place to spend the night. He asked Nanami how happy she was with her new clothes and shoes. He added that later after the bath they would look like new. The girl was surprised it was her first bath. The boy shouted sharply, was he serious about that? Arriving at the hotel, the boy asked if there were baths, and he was told there were, though small. He rented one room and they charged him 2 gold. When they entered the room, the boy thought it would be his first bed since he came into this world. Entering the bath, he noticed that the water seemed just right and told Nanami that they would go together. The girl sat quietly while he poured water on her head. Nanami smiled in surprise. She said it was warm. She smiled happily at Yuta. Seeing that he hesitated, she asked what had happened. Yuta asked how old she was, and Nanami replied that she was 14. The boy was surprised. He thought she was 10. It was really bad, even though he was only 3 years older, but in Japan he would have been imprisoned. He asked Nanami if she could bathe by herself. She didn't understand why and asked to do it together. She had never bathed alone before. He stayed anyway, and they reached an agreement. Nanami even offered to wash Yuta and started rubbing his back. While they were washing, the girls suggested that they always stay together. The man smiled and said he would always be by her side. Nanami, whom her parents gave away, looks at him as if he were an older brother. But what can he do if he is the only family Nanami has? He gave her enough food and allowed her to study. He changed into new clothes and the girl called out to him. She asked if the new dress suited her. He said it looked very good on her. They moved forward and he thought he would start by improving their living conditions. The hero sighed heavily, and today again he did not find work. So he remained with a rudia value of 2. He apologized to Nanami because he thought this life would still hold on for some time. The girl said everything would be fine as long as he was near. Someone approached, apologizing, and asked if they were looking for work. The man said he had a job that paid 50 gold per month. The boy was surprised. That was a lot of money, but he remained silent, hesitating uncertainly. He asked the man what kind of work it was. He said that he had a daughter about their age and that he needed them to talk with her. The boys considered it. Yuta cried out in surprise and asked if all that was necessary, then said he might try. The man confidently stated that they would succeed and introduced himself Belfast. At the estate in Belfast, the boy shuddered upon seeing a girl with animal ears. The girl turned back to them. Belfast asked if they were surprised. He said that it was a half-blood curse, like a curse. As a nobleman of the kingdom, he had his share of enemies in affairs, and it seemed as if someone somewhere held an ancient grudge against him. That was why his daughter had become like that, and he could not help but feel pity for her. Yuta reached out to her, but she recoiled from him. She looked inquisitively at the boys who had just arrived. He introduced himself, gave his name, and asked Nanami her name. The girl extended her hand and took his palm. She introduced herself as Falma, and he said that from now on they were friends, so she could tell them anything she wanted. She was born like that and until recently had lived locked in her room. This was the first time she had spoken to anyone outside the family, especially friends. It was no wonder she was wary. Nanami grabbed Falma's hand and asked her to play with her. The girl asked if Nanami really wanted to play with her and if she was not afraid of her. Nanami did not understand what she was talking about, and Falma was happy. Bedford noticed that his daughter looked very happy, and the hero thought, it is impossible to resist Nanami. Yuta said that Nanami was also glad. A friend her age appeared next to her. The man said that he had actually brought people here before, but when he showed them his daughter, they screamed as if she were a monster and ran away. So he turned to them then and was happy that this time it was them who came. He said that now they would have their own room and food. This was already their mansion and they could feel at home. Since then, they began to live in Belfort's house, normal food, comfortable beds, and then they also spent time playing with Falma. A month later, Nanami and Falma became like sisters. The girls called Yuta to play because it was his turn to steer. The breathless man asked them to wait. He was too energetic. He noticed the open door and peeked inside. Inside, a huge robot awaited him. Falma approached him and asked what happened, and he replied, "What is this?" She said that this was a mech that her father had bought long ago. When they excavated it, a triple Highlander climbed on board, but nothing started. It looked broken. No mech could control a triple Highlander, so the father bought it as a collectible exhibit. Learning about the excavations, the hero asked if mechs were not built. Falma said that it seemed impossible to reproduce the mech core with technology, so they dug up old mechs from ancient civilizations and restored everything except the core itself. The boy was surprised how much she knew. The girl replied that the reason was that she liked mechs. She considered them magical because they could not be assembled from scratch with current magical technologies, and she was also drawn to their unknown power. The man said that he did not care whether this thing would work at all. Its value was as a weapon. The girl was surprised because she had not heard of such a thing before. He agreed that it was low and asked how many she had. She answered 7,800. He exclaimed that it was cool. Nanami jumped out to them and asked what happened. Falma asked Nanami if she knew her Rudia level. The man replied, "If she cannot open the door to the servant's room, it means her level is low." Nanami said that she had never touched that door. The boy wondered if the meaning of Rudia in Nanami could also be high. Later, they got a chance to find out what Nanami's Rudia means. Belfast was so caring and sensible he called the company to measure the potential of Nanami's Rudia. It turned out that Rudia was 32,000, and it was a triple Highlander. Belfast said that it was extremely important, and if she wanted, he could introduce her to the royal family of this country. But the girl refused and said she would stay with Yuta and Falma. The man patted the girl on the head and said that Falma had very good friends. Somewhere else you thought about how strangely this world is arranged, this strange auction fever. Everyone in her class was scattered separately. She remembered Yudo. The man announced that they had arrived and ordered a salute for Huey's triple Highlander. The guard took a stance to salute. Taking her out of the carriage, the man ordered her to watch her step. At that moment, the girl decided that she was not so wonderful and did not deserve it. The man on the throne said that she was still very young, and he liked that she did not look like a triple Highlander. Nearby, a maid asked Yui to bow her head before the emperor, but the emperor said she did not need to bow. He said that she was special, the fifth triple Highlander in his kingdom. Instead of a bow, she had to swear loyalty to him with her power. The servant asked Yui to go with him before he showed her her room. He wanted to show her her fur. They entered a huge hall where robots stood. The man said that what she saw were ordinary mechs, and the mechs of experienced pilots were behind. He asked her to follow him and said that he would now open the hangar just for her, so he asked her to be careful. He asked to look at the girl in fur. He showed LVMEC activation value 30,000 ordnance, maximum exhaust 3 million, armor rank SS rank, starting power SS. The man behind her said that this was truly a monstrous mecha. The man next to her agreed with him. Then one of them realized that she was a new pilot and introduced himself Yudo. He said that he was also taken only 5 years ago. They are both Japanese, so if anything is unclear, she can ask him. The worker behind Yudo called him and informed that they have already finished servicing Ajura. Yudo told the girl that it seemed he had already been called, so it was time to go. The man replied that this was Yudo, a 5-time Highlander, and his Rudia value was 57,000. He was considered the strongest pilot on the continent. The girl repeated his words about the strongest. The man said that because of Judas, their empire is the strongest on the continent, and that is why he sometimes has more power than the emperor himself. He whispered to Yui that there is nothing wrong with this, just better to understand him. The man added that later he would ask someone to teach her how to drive Alvala and hoped that she would quickly settle in and become a force for good in this country. The girl said she had a request, and the man asked what kind of request. She said that at the auction the boy was given away for a nut, and the man remembered the one who had defects and named the price Rudia II. The girl shouted that he was not like that at all, and the man apologized. She said she was worried about what happened to him and asked if she could find out about it. The man agreed and said he would ask Erishu to pick up the boy. The girl thanked him. She had loved Yudo's honest and kind nature since first grade. But when Yui realized her feelings, it was already too late. She was going to gather courage and tell him during the school trip. She imagined how she would confess to him. In another place, Belfast burst into the house and told the boys the significance of Nanami's weapon had leaked to the government and the military had already been deployed. The hero froze in horror, and the man said that the army would be with them very soon. He would stay and buy time, so Nanami should take off and run quickly. There was already knocking on the door demanding Lord Belfast. Allegedly, this was the 6th Mech Regiment of the ruled-down army, and by royal decree they were obliged to summon the Triple Highlander. They wanted to complete the task as easily as possible, so they asked to open the door humanely. The man shouted that he could not do that. Yudo told Nanami that they had to leave. Falma got angry seeing them leave. The guards at the door realized knocking was useless. Belfast told the boys that he knew only a very short time had passed, but he had to thank them for bringing his daughter normal happiness. While he was thanking them, the door behind him was broken through by many swords. Belfast flew straight into the back and fell to the floor. 3 boys froze in shock. Falma screamed and rushed to her father. He had already begun to apologize that he could not do it. The girl cried, called her father, and begged him not to die. The man stroked her head and asked Yudo to take Falma with him, because he no longer wanted her to remain alone. The boy immediately agreed, and the father called his daughter. He said he was incredibly glad to see her playing like an ordinary girl and asked if she was happy now. She replied that of course she was happy. Laying her father's head on her lap, she said she had been happy since birth. The man smiled, cried, and finally understood her. There was a rumble behind the door again, and Yudo grabbed Falma, shouting to the girls that they could no longer stay here. The door was full of guards. The boys crouched behind the corner. Yudo said that the army was already everywhere and that their regiment had a whole bunch of people. Nanami asked if they could hide in that fur. The man did not know, as Falma said that there was a hatch in the chest. Nanami grabbed a ladder for them. The man froze near the huge machine, and then they began to climb inside. Inside was a cabinet chair with controls. The man finally realized what the pilot's cabin was like. Nanami sighed heavily. Inside there was barely enough space for 3. The boy closed the hatch and asked Falma what was in the box she was holding. The girl replied that her father said to take it just in case. The boy hissed, as if someone was outside. Inside the mechanical capsule, Falma said that this was Zofai's Rilden's combat mech. One pilot asked another if he had seen someone enter that place, and the other replied that he was sure of it. They noticed the fur inside and said it was a broken antique item. One of them said they came for the Triple Highlander and maybe it was there. He thought they could overcome this antique thing. The second declared it must be destroyed just in case and asked him for a spear. Inside, Nanami ordered Yudo to speed up because she was scared. Falma did not understand what to do. Yudo grabbed the control levers and asked if it was not working. Suddenly, the mechanism flared into action, and the enemy spear was already very close, and Falma shouted to Yudo to be careful. Yudo managed to craft a mech duck, avoiding the strike. The guards were amazed. This antique moved from its place. Falma told Yudo that mechs are controlled through consciousness and that he just needed to imagine as if he was moving it with the power of thought. The guard ordered the other to stay calm. Together they would manage. Yudo told the girls that they were unarmed and asked if the mech had any weapons. They called out to Falma and asked what to do. The girl remembered her father and said that they didn't need weapons, they just had to hit them. The boy froze for a moment but did as she said and struck the enemy. The pilot did not understand what was happening. The fist pierced the D-armor of Zofai's. Yudo was surprised at how powerful the Nitrobot was. Falma could not believe that Zofai's, the main mecha of the Roldan army, was no match for their mecha. Nanami happily said that this mecha was very strong. They decided to break through by fighting and head away. The boy's mech destroyed the enemy mech with one blow, and it flew out through the door. Falma was surprised that Zofai's, the main support of Rilden, did not match their fur. Yudo said that they needed to get out of this treasury, and they moved forward. Ahead of them were 3 more enemy mechs already in place. The pilots asked what kind of mech it was and if it had killed the 2 who were before them. One of the soldiers said that behind the wheel could be a Triple Highlander, so he ordered to surround it and capture it. The soldiers accepted the order and raised their weapons. One mech with a huge axe raised its weapon to strike. The hero managed to snatch one mech with an axe, another with a spear, but the third was already hovering above them and raised its weapon to strike. The hero, enraged, raised one of the pelts with all his might, depriving it of support. Eventually, the blow fell precisely on this pelt because he used it as a shield. The cut pelt fell to the ground. The soldier was struck by this force. The heroic mech struck the second mech with his foot. Only one enemy remained. He raised his sword to strike, and the hero was already aiming to attack. Suddenly, a ringing clatter sounded, and the enemy appeared behind Yudo. He fell dead along with the others, and the hero finally exhaled after the fight. He asked the girls where they should run. Falma said that if they went to the trading country Alpaca, Roldan's army might not reach them there. They were very close to the border, and there was almost no traffic on the roads, so this place was suitable for escape. Nanami reminded that the pelt would be too conspicuous. Falma said she would like to have a carrier, but she did not know anyone who had one, only those who use it for work or rich people they have them. Yudo apologized to Falma for her father being killed because of them. The girl holding the box said, "It is not Yuda's and Nanami's fault, it is Rildan's fault." She said angrily that she would never forgive them for this. Nanami suggested avenging her father's friends and destroying Rildan. Yudo quickly agreed. The girl thanked them and said that then they would head to Alpaca and get a powerful mecha for Nanami. She also said that she does not consider the value Eudoridium equal to 2 to be wrong, because the mech could not have been launched by the Triple Highlander. She suggested that maybe it even has something beyond the standard. The great bird was eating the remains lying on the ground, but it was frightened by a furry beast that was approaching. The people in the country that took her were generally friendly. The food was luxurious, the housing spacious and clean, and their attitude respectful. They honored and revered her. But it was not what she wanted. She wanted, as a teacher, to ensure the safety of everyone in the class and return them to the old world. Captain Mazzy ordered Deputy Commander Ruriko to strike the troops ahead and lead the second platoon to flank them from behind. The teacher accepted the order. He conveyed via a private line that he understands this is not the best time, but wants to tell her something important as soon as this battle. Enshe asked her to find time for him. The girl, embarrassed, agreed. One of the pilots reported seeing enemy forces had 12 combat mechs. Ruriko told Captain Mazzy that this was the second platoon and they were already in position. He radioed all units to keep this in mind and stated they would attack the enemy forces from 3 directions and to wait for his signal. The command gave the order to attack, and the combat mechs swiftly burst into battle. Rurik was clearing the way blow by blow, knocking down enemies one by one, crushing even those who were nearby. Having cleared out and completely eliminated all enemies, the girl with swords showed that the area was under control. Standing in front of several huts that were still standing but smoking, she ordered them to leave the hut and surrender. The girl exhaled, adjusting her headdress. The hatches began to open, revealing the pilots, and the teacher froze in horror. 2 students stood before her, Yuba Sakura and Nami Taguchi. She did not understand why her pupils had ended up in such a place. Mecha brandished swords before them and asked the schoolgirls where the rest of the units were, and Sakura replied that she did not know. For this, he wounded her hand with a sword, and the girl, flinching from the pain, grabbed her injured wrist. The man asked again where the others were, and the girl screamed and cursed through tears, insisting that she really did not know. Ruriko watched in horror as her commander, as if about to raise his sword over the crying girl. The teacher moved from her place, blocked Massey's sword, and did not let him kill her students. The commander shouted at Ruriko, but she did not understand what exactly she was doing. The girl rushed into battle with him and asked what he was doing to her students. Mazzy shouted at her, declaring that she was the one hitting now, and asked why she was doing it. Other soldiers turned to the deputy commander and asked what she was doing, then shouted for someone to stop her. But Rurika had already defeated him. She exhaled while the soldiers continued to call her and ask why she was doing it. In this incomprehensible world, her students are forced to kill each other, and she will not allow it. The teacher ordered Yuba and Taguchi to quickly climb into their bags. The girl, who was shedding tears, immediately recognized her teacher. She shouted to the girls to hurry, and they moved as fast as they could, but an obstacle appeared before them. Another mecha, armed with a sword, pointed it at her and told the second in rank, Ruriko, that he would not let her go. She tied her hair in a ponytail, thinking that all she wanted was to protect her students. And she wants all of them to return to the world from which they came. The hero and the girls arrived in the trading country Alreka. In the city center, everything shines with abundance and prosperity, while on the outskirts there are low buildings and slums. Yudo asked Falma if she had changed her mind, and she answered without any doubt, "No, they will sell the jewelry." The boy tried to convince her, but the girl was steadfast, and despite the persuasion, she stood her ground. Then Yudo asked which of the most valuable jewelry in Belfast, so that they would behave carefully and not sell it immediately for a pittance. They decided to take a simple item and ask about the price, but they really did not know how to find someone they could trust. They went to the first merchant and he said the decoration was good, valuing it at a maximum of 2 million. The second replied that the item was good, but the model was old, he valued it at 1 million and no more. And the third declared that it was a cheap fake and would pay only 100,000 for it. The three sat at the table and the hero said that it turned out they would have to sell it to the seller who offered 2 million for it. The girls agreed with him, they were called aside and they returned. A man stood nearby and advised them not to go to that merchant, saying they would regret it later. The guys were surprised, to them he looked suspicious. The man apologized, introduced himself as Jean, and said he was pleased to meet them. The hero asked what he should have said earlier. The man replied, "Of course, the merchant is famous for his quick hands. At first, he will lower the price on the first item, but at the same time reduce the value of the rest and thus arrange it so that it is difficult to buy something cheap for steal. This city is one of those." Yuta understood him, and then Jean made them an offer to hire him. The hero was surprised, and Jean asked, "Each merchant gives a different amount, right? And he can sell it to each merchant at a price 1.2 times higher and take 10 for his sales work. If he sells nothing, then he will demand nothing." The hero decided he had nothing to lose. He whispered to Falma that he did not know how to bargain, so he suggested hiring Jean, and the girl agreed. Having stood in the shop for a while, the merchant, after examining the decoration, said he had both good and bad news and announced, "The full price is 10 million. Jean, after asking again, led the boys further. They are going to look for another place. The merchant even exclaimed that he would raise the price to 12 million and more. Another trader offered 15 million, and Jean ordered him to wipe that smile off his face. He stated that this stone is a Milfa 10th grade and the other is a grade Fefa, emphasizing, "These two items are worth almost no more than 10 million. He said he is a fraud and claimed that he has a network of contacts among traders. Jean said that the merchant Libertot began to threaten, and the merchant then offered him 20 million. Jean burst out shouting, he knows perfectly well the value of these stones and cannot deceive Liberto if he still does not understand. The merchant, apologizing and crying, replied that he would give 30, but he himself has no more money. A little later, the hero decided that it was incredible. He thought that 1.2 would be fine, but Jean tripled the price. The man asked the boys what they would do with such money. Judah said they would buy fur, and Jin asked what kind of fur they wanted. Yudo said they needed a mecha that could be controlled by a person with a Rudia value of 10,000 or more. Jean was surprised when he realized that Yudo was a Highlander, but Falma cut in, "This is not for such a guy." Jean said that overall it is not that important and he does not care, but if they were talking about new furs, he would surprise them. Yudo screamed across the street in fright as soon as he heard the price 100 million gold. The man cleared his ears and said that even if it was cheap, Highlander fur was a very expensive thing. The man was in despair. He understood that there was not enough money, but Jean said that they had another way. A huge coliseum rose before them. The heroes found themselves in a huge gladiatorial arena. Among the Highlander gladiators there were almost none, so he hoped his instincts did not fail him. At this time, two mechs were already fighting in the arena. The hero asked how to get to the Colosseum, and that man snorted and said he would arrange everything. Nenami said worriedly that these men looked strong and asked if he could handle it. Jean was surprised to realize that Yudo would be the one fighting and asked what his price was. Yudo replied with a smile that his value was the same, but asked not to worry. Hearing his own words, Jen froze in icy shock and stared intently at the hero. He shouted, asking what had just been said and whether it would be better to give the pilot role to that young girl. Yudo replied that he could not, there was no choice, only he was capable of controlling the mech they had. Jane was shocked. He had never heard of a mech behaving like that, and in general, the hero would not even turn on the magic lamp at level 2. Yudo replied that honestly their mech was strange, maybe that was its default setting. At that time, the arena announced the second fight, emphasizing that it definitely should not be missed. Shinsuke, the pilot who had won many fights in a row, entered the arena. Yamakura's hero shuddered upon hearing that name. He was sure they were from the same class. His opponent was Altadane, over 500 victories to his name. The one who called the boy youngster promised to show him that gladiators do not rely solely on Rudia level. The hero recalled, Yamakura was a quiet boy, but he did not communicate much with him. The boy snapped after such treatment and exploded. He called his opponent an old idiot and declared that he would regret it if he did not surrender immediately. Hearing this, the hero decided that he was wrong. The mechs began to fight, and the old man managed to break free from under a blow. The man, dodging strikes, shouted that it would not work and that only increased the youngster's anger. Using a third hand, he intercepted the blows and said that this hand would withstand a strike from the strongest mech. He grabbed Mecha Yamakura and declared that he would crush him to death, and he would have no chance to prove himself in battle. The boy student smirked and in response called the old man, saying that such cheap tricks would not defeat him. The old man said, "Don't lie for that, he would make him bitterly regret it." Suddenly the crack of broken parts rang out and the man froze in shock. Yamakura parried with words, declaring that he could still defeat him. The old man's skin almost shattered in an instant. The host announced, "They have a champion, Shinsuke Yamakura." The hero realized it was him, his classmate Yamakura, but before him was seemingly a completely different person. He was no longer quiet. Jin, standing nearby, asked Yudo if he understood what Jin was talking about. The man said that fighting in the Colosseum is like putting your life on the line and that it is better to think about something else. The hero understood everything. Smiling, he said that if this is exactly what is needed, he will beat him. Jin doubted and replayed it in his head. The man smiled and replied that then they would find him his first opponent, and then asked which hero he would prefer, one who definitely has money and, of course, would leave it to him. After a while, someone in the bar was drinking straight from the bottle. The tattooed man asked if they really dared to choose his master Kevin the Red Dragon as their first fight. He apologized and said he would not fight this child. Jin snorted and replied, he regrets it because he had already planned to bet 20 million, so he asked if he still wanted to accept the challenge. The man, after thinking it over, finally agreed but asked them not to cry afterwards. Jin said it was mutual. So his first fight as a gladiator has already been decided. Judging by everything, it will be the first match after lunch. The worker unfolded the heroes before him and pushed them forward. Another worker stopped him and said that the name in Mecha Yudo was left blank. And the hero replied, "That's because she has no name." The girl responded that even if so, it was still a problem. She needed a name for registration, so he had to decide now what to call her. She said, "Decide now," but it was difficult to do. The hero recalled in his mind a favorite anime from before where a white lion fought and tried to remember its name. Remembering the name, the hero asked the worker to record her fur under the name Arleo. Meanwhile, the enemy mech entered the arena and the announcer declared, "The fight has begun." The debut of Gladiator Yut and his mech Arleo. Someone called out to Yudo. Jin advised the hero if he could pretend to win at the last moment, but the hero did not understand why. Then the man explained, if you win barely by a hair, it will affect the bet on the next fight. The host announced that his opponent was a mediocre gladiator with 50 wins and also Red Dragon Kevin with his fluffy Olga. Noticing that the bets on Kevin were 57 times higher, the hero realized things were bad. The host announced the start of the battle. Kevin immediately rushed into attack and was even surprised when the hero dodged the strike without any problems. The hero noticed that the enemy was open from above, in the center, and below and could respond with a strike, but Jin ordered him to pretend that it was hard for him and he had no choice only to just hit. So he did. But the strike was too strong and tore the enemy's fur. The spectators silently watched how what was happening unfolded. Suddenly the stands exploded with shock. Jen, stunned, thought this is much more than he expected. The hero stared in surprise. He had managed and did not know what Jin would say now. The enemy armor was broken, smoke was coming out of it. Kevin, croaking, muttered that he had lost vigilance. After the man stretched his neck, he said that the hero thinks he has strength, but the real fight is only just beginning. The hero silently begged Kevin to hold on because he could still fight. The man shouted to the hero to take his super attack. The hero did not know this move and realized he would just have to take the hit block it with his hands. And then the man hit him right in the hands. Both were tense until the man was struck by what he saw. From the blow to the hero's fur's own fur began to break into pieces while the man shouted that it was impossible. The mecha, the Red Dragon, collapsed and the announcer declared that the fight was over. Yuda and Arleo won. The hero screamed in despair, realizing he had ruined everything. When he got off the fur, his friends were already waiting below and Jin looked displeased. The man shouted, reminding him that he had ordered him to stand in line. The hero, apologizing, said he didn't think he could do it like that, and because of that, it would now be much harder for them to find an opponent. The girls ordered Yudo to check how much money they had. They left him 100,000 gold for living expenses, and all the rest of their money, collected from valuables, was placed on him. The boy was in shock. It turned out that absolutely everyone in their company bet on judo. Later in the cafe, Yuta was arguing, not having a clue what to do. No one else wanted to fight with him. The girls criticized him, saying last time it was too one-sided, but they themselves wanted to watch. Yuta told Jin to stop drinking and asked if he had any ideas, and he replied that there was no choice and that they needed a plan in such a matter. It was then that Yuta exclaimed that this could not be. Before him stood Yamakura, Hiranishi, and Shibai. The hero said joyfully that they hadn't seen each other for a long time and asked the guys how they were doing. Hiranishi grimaced and said that the fact that they were classmates did not give Yuta the right to call them by their first names. Yuta was shocked. Hiranishi said that there was a chasm between people like the hero and people like horses. The hero did not understand what he was talking about, and Hiranishi offended him and forbade him to address him formally. Hiranashi said that he was the elite with level 3300 and he was a nobody with level 2. The guys began to argue with each other and two friends turned into enemies. Nanami listened silently. Unable to bear it, the girl said to stop being rude to Yuta. They know each other, so why say such horror? Hiranishi asked again angrily, and disgust was red on her face. He laughed and asked the hero what was wrong with him. Had he really become a servant nanny for children? Seeing Falma, he asked what was going on, why she had a hood, and whether he did not consider it indecent in the presence of the elite. He grabbed her hood and the girl said, "Let go," when he ordered her to show her face. He tore the hood off her and everyone around froze in horror, calling her a monster and insisting that the half-beast still remained a beast. The angry hero intervened and hit his former friend. Holding the place where he was hit, Hiranishi asked what he had just done, and the hero replied that he did not care how high the weapon was raised. He was just a nobody who liked to maim those he did not love, and he himself was no better than him. Jin loudly put the bottle on the table and called it Anishi, saying that he did not know what kind of relationship they had, but they were all gladiators. In that case, he suggested settling everything in the Colosseum. The hero called out to Jin in surprise, and her Amasai asked who would go out to beat some nobody like Yuto. The hero did not understand what he was planning, but Jin reminded him. It was the hero who said a plan was needed, so let him see how it works in practice. Jin proposed a fight only with melee weapons 1 against 3, a 40 million gold bet, and he gave himself a big handicap. Hiramishi repeated his conditions and asked if he understood that he was actually throwing money into the void. Jin said he understood, but if they refuse, it would mean that they really fear Yuto. Haramishi snorted but still agreed and accepted the terms. The next day, the announcer declared that today is a special fight of the day. A newcomer who has already shown exceptional strength in the first match will face 3 gladiators in a general fight. Falma asked the man if that was a weapon in Arlio's hands, and he replied, yes. After all, fighting 3 one-on-one with bare fists would be too difficult. The announcer declared that this is a battle against gladiators who have won 10 consecutive victories. Shinsuke Yamakura, Yuji Zaranishi, and Yasuke Shibai and their mechs Ranza, Edel, and Musou. Jin shouted to Yuto that these tonfa are specially made from magnetite, and he cannot be afraid. He must fight with all his might. Falma asked him to be careful. The announcer announced the start of the fight. Yamakura grimaced and began calling the hero offensive names. Haramishi stated that he was sure the hero's first fight was a complete lie, and Shibai promised to show him how foolish his fight was, calling Yuto a D-grade student. The first, insulting the hero, rushed at him with his weapon, shouting for him to die already. After the strike, his weapon suddenly began to crack and break. Yuto struck him with his weapon. The enemy mech's body began to crack, and he shouted insults at Yuto. He continued to attack, but Yuto skillfully dodged and parried the blows so expertly that the enemy did not understand what was happening. Haramishi screamed in fear that it was impossible to do that with gun too, and did not understand what exactly Yuto had done. Frightened, he said that the hero had deceived them and ordered to stop, because if they lose, their kingdom will end. Yuto replied that he did not care because they were to blame themselves. He dealt the final blow and shattered Mishina Metza. The host announced that Ute and Arlio had won, but the hero did not rejoice in this victory. The Haranishi and others changed after coming to this world. The Rudia level became a new tool for them to assess the individual value of each person. The hero wondered if the same had happened to everyone in the class. He got out of Arlio while his friends below were already waiting for him. At least he swore to himself that he would not end up like them. The girl behind the mech control panel counts the opponents, 1 on the right, 2 on the left. Exhaling, she focused and realized, this is a trap and someone is standing behind. She managed to repel the unexpected attack, and the enemy was surprised that she had time to dodge. The leg of another mech instantly broke. The girl jerked upward, jumped into the air, and found herself behind her opponents. She was advised to calm down and watch exactly where she landed. She struck the enemies. The two in front of her retreated back to their feet. Radio Yui reported that this is enough already. Yudo said, "This is impressive even for sparring," and the man nearby was no less surprised how she became so strong in a month. The girl objected. She did nothing, it was all Kaudo's preparation. The boy said it was not so, all thanks to the girl's innate talent. He did not expect her to grow up so quickly. Then the man added, "Next time Kaihou will be able to train her," and he immediately agreed, asking if she wanted to join the Simria vanguard. Yui asked the man about her request. He, understanding that she was talking about the boy from the auction, said, "They found a buyer who took him and started negotiations to get him back, but the boy himself seems to have run away a few days ago. That merchant wanted to hide it from them and pull off the deal, but for his audacity he was punished and so that he would never dare to do such a thing again." The girl became sad, and the man said she did not need to worry. Their mind was already working on it with the highest priority, and he was sure there would be good news in a few days. The girl really asked for help because she was worried about Yudo. He promised that they would do everything to find him. At this time, in another place, entering the luxurious hall, Nanami was surprised that everything around was shining. Falma said that this was unlike any hotel they had been to before, and here it was even better than at home. While the girls were jumping on the bed, Jean said it was time to move on. The hero would no longer be able to earn money by performing as a gladiator. After 3 encounters with Yudo, they had more money, but he was too strong, no one wanted to fight him. The hero did not understand what to do next. Chujit broke the silencing, both turned to look at the broken bed with the girls. Jean said that in the end he earned 200 million, so why not just buy a mech? The hero replied that if possible, he wants to buy 2 mechs plus a carrier, and asked if they could fit within that amount. Jean clarified whether he needed 1 regular mech and 1 for Highlander. The hero explained that they needed a mecha that a pilot could launch with a rating of 7,800. Genji understood. They needed a half-lander and said that since such were needed, the price was high. 200 million would definitely not be enough for him. The hero asked if they really could not fight one more battle. The man said there is only one option, only one person would agree to fight him now. The hero replied that he doesn't care who it will be, as long as Jean doesn't say he advises against it, because it's about a fighter who hasn't lost in 120 fights. This is the strongest gladiator in the whole world, a rudiment of level 23,000. No matter how strong Yudo is, this opponent is beyond his power. The hero decided to fight him anyway. This was supposed to be his last battle. Jean shouted, asking if he was sure because he was dealing with almost a triple Highlander. The hero said it didn't matter, he would win anyway. Jean did not understand where such confidence came from and replied that he would not bother him. He was interested in how much the hero wanted to leave. The latter replied, "For all 200 million. Hearing this, Jean decided that maybe he really was stupid. Late that evening, Nanami called Yudo and said, as soon as they avenge Falma's father, she suggested they escape somewhere while just the 3 of them, and Falma wanted that. The hero replied that it was a good idea. Nanami asked if he would fight again, and the hero replied yes. She asked him not to get injured. He thought even if they consider him frivolous, he will not let them cling to him and worry. All that remained was to pretend confidence. He promised the girl that everything would be fine. The next day, a girl sat in front of him trembling. She couldn't believe he would ask her to sleep with him. She thought he was such a fool, but instead found out he was a sweet little boy. It was a complete surprise. The boy himself was also in shock. He wasn't expecting a girl. Instead, he saw a seasoned, muscular, scary man. The girl asked him what the terms of the fight were. Jean replied that the stake was 200 million, but she was not interested in the money. She couldn't drink it, so she asked if he could add one more condition. She said, only the loser will belong to the winner. Jean shouted, ordering her not to be foolish. They cannot accept such conditions. The girl playfully replied that she was scared, but then there would be no fight. Yet the hero unexpectedly agreed to this condition. She barely smiled, saying that he was both sweet and brave, and she liked him just like that. Jean shouted at Yudo that if he lost, he would become her servant, and he could not agree to such terrible conditions. You just said that everything is fine and that he will definitely win. Jean did not understand where such confidence came from, and the girl replied that everything had already been decided then. She, calling him baby, introduced herself as Luna. Yudo, saying that he was not a child, responded by introducing himself. She could not wait for him to become hers and said she was glad to meet him. The boy nervously replied that the feeling was mutual. In the city, people were crowding. Everyone was whispering, chattering about the special fight. Pure madness. They were just watching the bets. Some did not want to go watch at all. The hero was surprised at how many people came to watch, and Jean said he heard. The bets on this fight were unheard of. The hero asked if no one was betting against him, and Jean replied that he was exactly betting against him. Nanami said that she and Falma also placed bets on him. The smiling hero replied that this meant only the three of them would win, so now he must win. The announcer declared, "Today will be the hottest fight of the year. The strongest gladiator Alana has returned to the Colosseum. She is so powerful that no one has dared to challenge her for a long time." The undisputed queen, who still helped the management as an advisor, finally awaited an opponent. He announced, "On the other side stands a fighter who has won a whole series of matches, the rookie gladiator Yuta." There were many talks, how long he would last defending against the onslaught of Aluna. Aluna called the hero a baby and asked if he was ready, and he repeated that he was not a baby and that his name was Yuto. Breaking free from her place, she shouted that Yuto was right. Their mechs collided with each other, and the boy was struck by how quickly she accelerated. Aluna continued to press forward, but he managed to fend off. The girl mockingly asked if something was wrong with him and if he was not going to attack her. The man decided that was the most he could say and replied, "If I could, I would gladly do it." Luna started attacking again. The hero managed to protect himself thanks to a piece of the floor, but this did not stop the girl. She rushed at him again, but the hero managed to hit her. The girl said it was not that bad. He was the first to damage her fur. Yuto replied that he would not stop and would be the first to win. The girl, smiling, said it was funny and suggested trying if he could. Aluna said threateningly that this was just a warm-up, and the hero shuddered. Suddenly her fur seemed to evaporate. The hero noticed in horror that she was gone. Jean was also shocked. She appeared right in front of the hero's fur. Luna hit him, but the hero still did not understand what exactly happened. The hero's mech shoulder module was torn, and smoke was pouring from it. From the side of the stands, the crowd roars. The spectators are noisy, impatient for the fight not to stop. The opponents exchange glances. Both underestimated each other's strength. Nanami and Falma worry about the main hero. They notice that Aruna is not so simple. The girl somehow accelerated. Jean confirms the suspicion, all because of the weapon and concentration. It seems Aruna knows a way to temporarily enhance Rudia's potential. Looking at the opponent, Yuta almost immediately understands this too. Aruna is just mocking the protagonist. He doesn't even know how to concentrate energy, but still dared to challenge her to a fight and was sure all along that he would win. But the girl suggests ending it immediately. The enemy strikes blow after blow, and Yuta is extremely frightened. He is not sure he can withstand another hit. Aruna prepares for another attack. The protagonist feels trapped. Yuta tries to pull himself together and surveys his options. He even thinks about sacrificing his hand, but immediately rejects the idea. The boy thinks that the rising value of Rudia might help, but how exactly can he do that? The hero dives into childhood memories when he and a friend used to attend Aikido. Then the girl quickly urges him on and gets angry, reminding him that her father doesn't like being late. Yuta got furious when they were forced to meditate instead of training. Besides, he had never meditated before. The man calmly began explaining the basics to the boy, then suggested trying it. After the teacher's words, the children make their first attempt to find concentration. Yuta clearly remembers, calmness in the mind is the key to strength. Returning to the present, the hero recalls the coach's instructions and withstands a devastating blow from his opponent. Aruna is confused. The girl doesn't understand how the novice managed to stand firm. The body of the Highlander double should have shattered into pieces, and she also notices a strange aura around the enemy. Aruna can't believe it was Yuta. She hesitates a little, then suddenly rushes into battle with firm determination. She is confident that victory lies ahead. Meanwhile, the hero reaches the peak of concentration. The accumulated energy flares and sparkles in his eyes like flames. The enemy rushes forward, and the main hero delivers the decisive blow, putting all his strength and inner power into it. Realizing defeat, Aruna says that Yuta is a real fool, and yet she accepted her defeat. Finally, Gerald announces the winner and the protagonist hears his name. Yuta exhales tiredly. This fight was the hardest for him. The company celebrates the victory and the accumulation of the required amount. They raise a toast to Yuta. Aruna behaves as if she hadn't lost recently and offers food to the hero with a fork. The boy is surprised by the behavior of the fresh opponent. He came to celebrate his victory and is so friendly to him. Aruna does not understand his complaints. The girl says that she really likes the hero. Besides, she wanted to stop fighting anyway. There are no worthy opponents and fighting is an unprofitable business. Yuta honestly admits to himself he is pleased by Aruna's sympathy. Stuffing his mouth with food, Jean notes that they still need their new comrade. The protagonist is outraged. He thought their joint affairs were already over. In response, the boy makes a sad face. He thought they were friends. With a restrained, serious face, Jean asks Yuta to look at the situation from another side. He has already managed to defeat a man with 20,000 rudia. Doesn't that mean it's time to take action? The protagonist says he is not interested in money. When Jean asks what he wants then, Yuta confidently answers to defeat Rudavan. Hearing this, the guys bombard him with a whole shower of questions. Is he a spy from another country? Is he a tool of someone's political game? Yuta asked, don't soldiers do the same every day? And remembering, he noticed that there is no meaning for him in all this. Moreover, the hero is afraid to endanger Nanami and Falma. The girls protested, if Yuta fights, then they fight too. In response, the boy said that war is no joke. Meanwhile, Jean hints the protagonist must gain power. Otherwise, what will he show? Yuta admits that he is right. Stopping near a luxurious transport mech, Yuta asked if it belonged to Aruna. She answered without hesitation that it was his. She is his and therefore the mech is too. The young man felt uncomfortable. The mechanism was expensive. Aruna said that she got stuck here and the fur is just rotting in the barn because no one else needs it anymore. Maybe the main character will turn everything around, she thought so, but then the girl added that she wants to show something different. Aruna introduces the fair-haired girl Lisa as the best mechanic in the district. It was Lisa who repaired her mech after the battle. Yuta extends his hand to introduce himself, but Lisa immediately pushes it away. The hero feels a gaze on him, one that promises nothing good. Lisa says she hates Yuta and demands that he not even dare to harm Aruna. The young man raises his hands and tries to explain that he had no intention of hurting her, and Aruna tells her friend the guy won a fair fight. But Lisa unconditionally insists that she will continue to pressure, demanding that her friend be released immediately. Aruna tries to convey to her that their mission is important, and if Lisa doesn't like something, she should mind her own business. During the quarrel, Jean bursts in and asks if Aruna called him. The girl confirms she did call. She says that Yuta will go with him. In the first shop, Nanami suddenly notices that she has 32,000 rudia and Falma replies, she has 7,800. Aruna and Jean were clearly not ready for such information. Giant furs were displayed in huge windows and in Falma's eyes the starry sky literally sparkled. The girl is happy to finally see them live and not just on the pages of books. A seller appears and while telling her about bestsellers casually asks Aruna which mech she is looking for. The girl says that their team needs one that costs over 30,000 rudia. Coming to his senses after the shock, the seller leads them to the appropriate mechs. The man introduces them to the Golden Vajra mech, naming its characteristics. Priced at 30,000 rudia, maximum power 3,200,000, SS rank armor, S rank agility, and the most successful, flawless engine. Falma admires the golden shade of the fur and Aruna its power. The seller says something else about Vajra's might. Supposedly, he wanted to sell it to Elijah, but he doesn't have enough time to finish the sentence. Yuta invites Nanami to try the new fur thing. The girl recalls how her father said, gold is the color of happiness, so she is happy. The heroes decide to take the Vajra. Suddenly, Jean bursts in and stops them. A man asks the seller how much he wants for this fur product. Smiling slyly, he says 500 million, but for Aruna he will give a discount down to 400 million. With burning eyes, Jean calls it a hedgehog. Time passes and the heroes agree on 250 million. Impressed by Jen's trading skills, the seller asks if he really does not want to work for them. He refuses. He says he wants to be with the guys. It was time to pick a mech for Falma. Next, the team was introduced to Garuda 6200 rudium, maximum power 100,000, armor rank C, agility rank A. Garuda is a very unusual mech. It can fly. Hearing this, Falma froze in place, unable to move. She was enchanted by the very thought of flight. The seller noted that it would take time to learn to control the fur. When asked about the price, he replied that he did not want to resort to discounts again, so he would take 100 million. Falma still looks as if enchanted. The girl firmly decided that she wanted a winged fur. Jean's voice sounded again from the side. He asked to discuss something. The man said if they like everything, let them take the machines immediately, but he will still ask for advice. Then Jean hinted that they got weapons from Utah. Now it was time to test the new mechs. Yuta called to the girls if everything was okay. Happy Nanami replied that everything was just super. The hero continues to instruct the novices, asking them not to overexert themselves and to move slowly. Aruna notes that although they are good girls, the beginning can be difficult. Yuto replies that they both have always liked mechs. Suddenly Falma turns to the hero and asks how to make her new mech fly. He begins to refuse, insisting, first you need to get used to the steering. The girl does not listen to him, quickly finds a way to spin up the winged fur. The propellers hum, raising powerful air currents. Finally, Falma and Garuda rise into the air. The wind from the huge wings almost blows Yuta and Aruna away. The hero is impressed. This mech really can fly. Falma is no less enchanted. It seems to her as if she is on a real dragon. Retreat. Turning around, the heroes met Jean. He noted that this time everything went even more cheerfully. Jean said he was surprised at how big a role the weapon played. Aruna asked the crew where they were heading next. After a short reflection, Jean said they were going to the Republic of Kirks, and as an Earthling, Yuta did not understand what they were talking about at all. Aruna explained the possession of Kiyikis is now at war with the Karakia Empire. Now one can declare oneself as an outstanding fighter there. Jin added that Kiyikis is full of gold mines. You have to listen to them carefully. Jin noticed that in other countries of the world there are resources better suited to the needs of the world. And then that guy said, before they start fighting, they need to resolve one more important thing. Yuta did not understand exactly what he was talking about. Jean indignantly remarked that Yuta is an idiot. How can he not know the basics of business? After all, they have not yet decided what to name their team. The team is preparing for a training fight. Dujesni mechs stand against each other, freezing in anticipation of the signal, and Aruna focuses in anticipation of the clash that is about to begin. Jean asked if the participants were ready. Finally, he shouted, announcing the start of the fight. Aruna enthusiastically declared that her mech was a piece of cake and rushed forward, challenging the opponents. Yuta looks at Falma in surprise. She now not only flies but also confidently attacks from afar. Even he himself cannot do that, and the girl only teases him with a smile. Aruna, who had already faced Nanami in a duel, admits that she expected nothing else from 30,000 rudia. This girl is incredibly strong. Nanami rejoices at the praise and proudly pushes forward her giant weapon defense. Standing aside, Jean and Lisa watched the training fight as if it were a real movie. What they saw impressed them and even stirred them. Comfortably settled on the meadow, the team decided to rest. Falma noticed that on the way here she saw a beautiful lake and it was very close. Yuta became interested. As soon as Nanami heard about the lake, she immediately began asking to be taken there. She really liked the idea of playing in the cool water. Yuta asked them not to rush because they didn't even have swimsuits. Stretching carelessly, Aruna said she could give them her old swimsuits. The girl added that the rest was really needed no matter what. She had to help Yuta. It turned out that the lake was bigger than the boys expected and apparently quite deep as well. Thinking about this, the hero asked Falma if she could swim. Aruna asked Yuta if he would go swimming by himself, but the boy didn't even have time to answer. He felt a threatening presence of Lisa behind him, as if she was saying, "Don't you dare stare at her." Yuta decided not to swim. The hero wanted to go fishing. Jean, loaded with gear, asked Yuta if he knew anything about fishing. He hesitated but still answered, "Knows a little." The appearance of the fishing rod that Jean took out surprised Yuta so suddenly. To this, his companion said that Earth's culture with its technologies had greatly influenced this world. The Earthlings had passed a lot to them. Settling more comfortably on the shore, the hero began to catch fish. After spending some time there, Yuta finally felt something bite. He jerked sharply, quickly stood up, and pulled the catch out of the water, barely containing his excitement. And seeing the fish wildly twitching on the hook, Yuta's eyes lit up with puppy-like joy. Yuta thought there was nothing complicated about fishing, but as soon as Jean appeared with baskets full of fish, he immediately abandoned his conclusions. Evening falls and the team sits by the fire to roast fish. Jean asks if the boys had a chance to rest a little. He hopes that in the future they will be able to meet as often as possible. Suddenly, Yuta reminds them that they need to work on the rockets in the mechs. Aruna says, Falma already has excellent arrows, but the arsenal can be diversified with magical bullets. Yuta asked again with interest. Aruna laid out her idea. Mechs that require over 20,000 rudium can be equipped with so many guns that the enemy will be confused and really scared just by the sight. Falma added that magical bullets are quite compact, so they won't take up much space. Their firing accuracy is low, but everything has its pros and cons. After thinking carefully, Yuta decided it's better to have magical bullets than to do without them. In the luxurious building of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Elders General Republic of Kirka, he thanks everyone present for deciding to help the country in this difficult time. He wants to take all the mercenaries who arrived, but due to the war, the budget is limited. So for Kirk to be able to hire them all, the decision was to pay mercenaries based on their combat effectiveness. The silence was broken by a bearded mercenary. He didn't care, but the question was different. What results and payment were being discussed? The assistant girl replied, for each destroyed mech 5 million and for every 10 destroyed mechs a bonus of 10 million. Jean intervened in the conversation. He was satisfied with the pay, but he would also like an additional bonus for mercenaries who show the best results. The general opinion hung for a moment and they agreed. Then the team with the best result would receive an additional 100 million. When everything ended, the man suggested continuing the conversation on his floor. Meanwhile, someone called out to Yuta. Oh. The angry girl said that she and her team, unlike the hero, risk their lives here. If they lose, they will simply be killed, so she will not extend help to you. Before the young man could recover from the words of his former classmate Imara, Horeb appeared. He apologized for his friend, but noted that he would not help Yuta either, calling his involvement in this matter a fraud. Nanami shouted to the main hero, saying that Jean was calling him, but Yuta stood still and did not know how to react to the behavior of his former classmates. Where did such anger come from in them? Stepping back a little, he decided to ask Horeb and Imamura about working as a mercenary. Without answering the question, the classmate asked how Yuta managed to escape. He thought he had already been sold into service. The hero said it was a long story. Yuta changed the subject. He said that they might end up on the same battlefield, and if that happens, he offered to take care of him. Horeb asked Yuta how can he be a mercenary if he can't even launch a mech with 2 guns. His former classmate barely restrained his contempt, and Imamura did not even try to hide her hatred. Jean spread out the map and announced the team's first war meeting. Their plan was to retake the Ruba fortress. This was a joint operation in which other mercenary teams would also participate. Yuta hesitated on the spot. Rolling back the assault was too big a mission to start with. Jean agreed with the hero but noted this time they would join Kirk's regular army. From the side of Kairakia, about 100 mechs, 150 ballistas, and a trump card called Black Highlander. On their side, 83 mechs. In a siege, the difference in numbers can be offset by flawless strategy. After some thought, Jean said that 4 from their team could turn the battle in their favor. The only problem is that the rest of the mercenaries will stand in their way. In any case, Jean hopes the final strategy will be wise. The next day at the meeting, a bearded mercenary threw out that his team, Best King, would not fight side by side with these Iron Knights. Jean looked disdainfully at the bearded man. The commander-invader of the Beast King continued and stated that he could not trust the flank to these suspicious people, and he heard from a comrade there are fraudsters among them. After having listened to the mercenary, the general asked those present if anyone wanted to fight alongside the Iron Knights. If no one is found, the Iron Knights will be sent west alone. Yuta agreed strangely quickly. Jean barely restrained himself from swearing and asked his friend to be quiet. The team reached the destination. Ruba Fortress stood in a ring of dense fortifications, and it was truly gigantic. It could withstand a prolonged siege. Jen began explaining the strategy and said that he installed a spirit box in the dispatcher's cabin. It was given by Kirk's army along with a beacon and a recording device. Separately, that man spoke about the importance of information warfare. Jin would like the team to report to him about the situation as often as possible. Yuta said he noticed new devices on the arms of his mech. Aruna confirmed. She asked Lisa to install firearms exactly as the hero wanted. The girl briefly explained how to use the new weapon and reminded that magical bullets are not very powerful, so they are best suited to distract the enemy. The operation is about to start. The heroes are tense to the limit. Yuta asks if everyone is ready. The time has already passed. Aruna gives orders. Falme needs to gain altitude and prepare to open fire, Yuri to attract attention from the opposite side, and she together with Nanami to go around and destroy the enemies. The team moves into battle. The enemies behind the gates notice them almost immediately and begin corresponding actions. Yuta distracted the enemy mechs that attacked him in packs. The girls started an attack from the flank. Aruna struck lightning fast, deadly, and without hesitation, and Nanami pressed the enemies, pushing them back with powerful sweeping blows. Batma, controlling the maneuverable Gerudo, showered the enemy troops with arrows from the air. The battlefield was littered with fallen enemy mechs. The team had already destroyed dozens, if not hundreds of enemies, but something was wrong here. Aruna noticed that the number of enemies was not decreasing at all. Yuta confirmed her fears. If their calculations were correct, they should have had 33 mechs left, but here there were over 100. The girl suggested quickly finishing here and moving to help the others. Falme was excellently destroying one ballista after another from the air. She was almost elusive to the enemy mechs. Yuta was still watching her plunging arrows of Gerudo when suddenly he noticed one of the remaining ballistas was aimed directly at Falme. At first he shouted to warn his friend, but then decided to act. The hero remembered the magic spheres hidden in his arsenal. He just needed to distract the enemy. Alio's hand flared with accumulated energy and released a projectile of monstrous power. This was not the action Yuta had expected. Aruna watched, eyes wide with admiration. She had never seen such power in magic spheres before. The hero's shot not only destroyed the ballista, the explosion swept away half of the fortress wall. Jen tries to contact the team through the device. The man reports with obvious anxiety. The allies on the southern side are already at their limit, and he does not want to admit it, but they need to retreat. Iter agreed and added, it would be easier if they could shoot magical bullets from afar, but you can't shoot everywhere. The hero said he would go there alone. The captain of the Beast King's mercenaries is confused. Only from the southern side already over 100 mechs. His men beg to retreat, but no, they are already surrounded. He admits reinforcements are needed, but where to find those strong enough? The captain turns to Horeb and Imamura saying, you are half Highlanders, so let them do something. The fighters respond that they cannot help no matter how much they want to because the enemy in front of them is too serious. Two of them try to hold back the black mech, but he is too strong. Suddenly the black mech rushes forward to Imamura. Noticing this, Imamura already closes her eyes thinking this is her end, but nothing happens. The girl opens her eyes and sees someone got involved in the fight with the black mech. The ally effortlessly knocked out the decorative teeth of the enemy mech, then with a swing slammed its metal head into the ground. Only a pile of scrap remained of the formidable enemy. Horror. Gorep could not believe his eyes. The one who barely held together on his word of honor was defeated in moments by the white mech. Yuta gave orders to his remaining allies, everyone scatter from the flanks. Meanwhile, Jean was running through the situation with boredom in his head. Wow, war. Yuta and others are so strong they can do anything. But Jean suspects from now on there will be even more problems. While one after another, friends report on what is happening on the ground. Yuta says that now we need to continue work on the southern part. It seems everything is going well. Suddenly, the commander of the Beast King's mercenaries appears. Without any embarrassment, he declares that the Iron Knight should not carry other people's trophies after all. It is the only intact whole. Yuta does not understand this attack and tries to deny it. Aruna stops him and says that she has no time to deal with some idiots. The first battle of the Iron Knight ended with an impressive success, but the next mercenary meeting, the general says that he was shown the protocol about the defeat of the invincible knight, Favonius, if, of course, this is not a forged protocol. The assistant says that judging by how other mercenaries speak, the Iron Knights are claiming someone else's victory. Yuta does not understand what they mean. Someone in the room grins maliciously, and Jean notices it. The general and the assistant consider the Iron Knights' numbers unrealistic. Why 152 kills if the team had only 4 unrivaled units? Jen explains, they did it thanks to those 4 powerful mechs. To this, the general and his assistants respond that they have already received reports. The fortress was captured by the Beast King's mercenaries. Jin explodes, declares that those same mercenaries lost all will and essentially did nothing. The captain of the Beast King's mercenaries continues to incite the general against Jean and his team, so the man asks not to disturb the peace, and they still need to discuss the next operation. On F. At the border of the Kurikia Empire, Yui and her companion discussed the battle that just took place. The friend says that Yui has become incredibly skilled and now she is almost incomparable to her. The girl blushes. But Emina continues to emphasize that the Yui this time killed the trump card. A man approaches the girls and also notes their military merits. Yui thanks him and asks what happened. It turns out the enemy army made another move to invade the Empire's territory. The violators must be destroyed. Meanwhile, at the mercenary meeting in Kirk's, they discuss the battalion that invaded Karakia and it was destroyed by someone in a few minutes. The general decided this time they will conduct a large-scale extermination operation with 91 mercenaries, 150 soldiers, 250 ships, and their invincible Isen Ritter. Turning to Jean, the general ordered him this time without deception. When he asked who was spreading these rumors, the man pointed to the captain of the King Beast mercenaries squad. Jean does not understand why the general trusts him so selectively. To this, the mercenary commander Zvirapadit says that he and the general have known each other for a long time. Who should trust whom here is obvious anyway. Jen looks at this scene with disgust. Now everything is clear to him. Off FFFF. Operation about to begin. Yuta reports that he is on site. The device tells him the enemy has received strong reinforcements, so all teams need to be careful. The protagonist moves to meet the enemies. Armed with a spear with 2 tips, he literally cuts the mechs in half. Yuta was again surprised by the power of the weapon. How could it cut metal so harshly? Aruna guessed that it was the influence of the weapon itself. Meanwhile, the captain of the mercenaries of the Beast King receives more and more terrifying messages from his men. The soldiers insist they can no longer endure. Fear begins to spread even to the captain himself. Trying to pull himself together, the man asks for a situational report. Trying to contact the fighters, he notices the danger too late. Horror finally freezes him in place. Yuta did not recognize the captain's voice from the device. Usually calm, now it was soaked with fear and panic. The hero quickly learned from Jean where exactly the mercenaries of the Beast King were fighting to rush there. Well then. While Jean was trying to find them on the map, it turned out that all the mercenaries of the King of Beasts had already been destroyed. Without hesitation, Judas went to where the mercenaries had died. Aruna and the rest went with him. Words about strong reinforcements kept spinning in the hero's head, and he felt sick at heart. As soon as Judas reached the right place, he was met with an explosion and the walls collapsed while he was falling. They did not delay long with the explosion. Criminal, the monstrous black fur, resembling a dragon, had already carved out another victim for itself. Black and white mechs noticed each other almost simultaneously. Yui and Emina sit at the tea table. A man in uniform notes, the girls are truly an unbeatable duo, but he called them because the intelligence officers received important strategic information. Kirk's army is strong, and on their side are several mercenaries, the kings of beasts. The front line is retreating. In the next combat operation, they expect to face these mercenaries. They need to be extremely careful. Yui puts on her favorite hairpin and goes to Emina, apologizing for the burden. Her friend says there is still some time before the flight. After that, she notices Yui is almost always in military uniform. The girl thinks about how much time has passed since her arrival in this world. Emina pulls her out of her thoughts. She talks about a nice shop in the capital and suggests going there together after the operation. Yui looked at her friend and happily agreed to this proposal. Black and white mechs collide, trying to sense each other's strength. Yui has a strange, oppressive feeling, and Yuta is still in fear. The new enemy has already destroyed the mercenaries' best king. Black mech advances. The protagonist tries to push away emotions and focus on the weapon, leaving only the fight in his mind. Yui dashed forward with a sharp throw, aiming to attack first. The girl in the cockpit behaved confidently, as if acting instinctively. The black mech continued to advance, and Yuta continuously dodged. The strike of the giant machines destroyed everything around. City walls and columns fell. The enemy was too fast. Focusing on the weapon did not help the hero. Suddenly, Yuta heard voices as his friends approached. The main hero thanks the team for arriving on time and asks them to be ready. Now they have to act together against a strong enemy. Someone's voice from above interrupts him. On the roof of one of the buildings, another mech, an accomplice of the new enemy, or another unknown threat. Emina apologizes to Yui for making her wait. Aruna noticed that another group of mechs is approaching them. Because of this, the numerical advantage of the enemy becomes noticeable. If these were serial mechs, the team would have no problem finishing them off. But the trouble is with the flagships they are already preparing to attack. When Aruna asks how the fight is going, Yuta admits the new enemy is very strong. The girl voices the plan of action. Nanami draws the enemies who have just arrived, and Falma covers her from the air. Aruna entrusted Yute to take on the black mech. Probably it is controlled by a Highlander trio, so only the protagonist can handle it. Emina warns Yui, be careful. It seems their opponents are the same Beast King mercenaries, and they will use their numerical advantage to separate them. Having listened to her friend's advice, Yui decisively moved towards the strange white mech. Fear receded, only focus remained. Suddenly, like a film reel in a movie camera, memories from her life in her native world flashed through the girl's mind. A crying girl, a river. Her classmate Yuta was also there, all wet and dirty, painfully familiar and at the same time strange. Both Yui and Yuta come face to face, but both are overwhelmed by a nostalgic feeling that confuses them. The fight continued, and simultaneously memories flew through the opponent's mind. Once, returning from school, Yui saw a girl who was crying. She carefully asked what had happened. Gasping from tears, she said she had dropped into the river a brooch that her mother had given her. The girl put down her backpack and put on shoes on the shore, then carefully entered the river and began to examine the bottom. Looking at Yui, the girl warned, "This river can be dangerous." The girl assured the child that there was no need to be afraid because she was strong and feared nothing. Suddenly, Yui hears a familiar voice and turns around. Her classmate Yuta is standing nearby. He comes closer and offers to help with the search. In real time, the fight becomes increasingly fierce. The white mech delivers a powerful counterattack that nearly knocks Yui off her feet, and she momentarily loses her bearings. The lost brooches were finally found. A sparkling flower shines in Yuta's hand. Yui hears heavy footsteps, white paws approach step by step. The happy girl thanks her younger sister and brother for their help. Yui and Yuta say goodbye to her, smiling warmly, and ask her to take care on the way back. Tired and dirty, the boys were still satisfied with what they had done and settled on the shore, catching the light breeze and the last sun. Yuta compared this adventure to a treasure hunt and said it was very interesting. He thanked Yui for her help. Recalling that story, Yui thinks that she was the one who should have thanked the protagonist then. Almost simultaneously, Yui and Yuta think it was on that very day that they fell in love with each other. The white mech struck again. Metal clashed against metal with a loud clang, and the ground trembled from the impact. Yui's mech hand began to crumble. It could not withstand the devastating blow. Sweaty and clutching a gulp of air, Yuta does not understand why these memories caught up with him right now amid the fight. But here he remembers the rest of the team. He needs to find out how they are. Yuta turns to Aruna, and the girl briefly replies that she is managing for now. Nanami is also fine, and Falma is helping her. Aruna adds, if the protagonist has already dealt with the enemy, then let him go and help Nanami. Yuta agrees. He leaves the fallen black mech alone and decides that it no longer poses a threat. Yui sits in thought. For the first time in her life she lost. But why is it not disappointment, but relief? And why, when she crossed blades with the opponent, did she have that strange feeling? Suddenly, Yui realizes she can still move. A sudden attack comes to her mind. Not the best option, but it is her only chance. Suddenly, the girl hears Emina's voice. The threat looming over her friend becomes the main argument for her to gather herself and overcome herself. Yui finds strength and rises, rushing to where Emina's voice was heard. Seeing this, Yuta began to worry. The enemy mech loomed over Emina and was already raising its heavy hand to strike. Yui almost flew towards them, shouting her friend's name. Nanami noticed how the black mech was sneaking up, and it seemed it was aiming at her. Yuta, who was terribly shaking for Nanami, rushed forward after his opponent. He acted without reason. It was dangerous for Nanami to fight alone against several opponents. Emina thanked Yui, who managed to come. The girl herself told her friend that she would repay her when they returned to the capital. Emina is Yui's first and only friend in this world. She will not let her die on the battlefield. The friends begin to attack in unison. Emina pushes Nanami away and intercepts her in a hold. After that, she signals Yui, "Watch." Looking at this image, Yuta immediately understands where everything is heading. He also realizes there simply won't be time to intercept the black fur. The young man quickly runs through options in his head. The hero decides to shoot a destructive magic bullet. His hand unclenches and a huge stream of energy bursts out. The projectile flies straight through and tears off the black mech's arm along with its weapon. Worried about her friend, Emina is momentarily distracted and releases the enemy from her grip. Freed Nanami does not hesitate and delivers a fatal blow to the enemy. Mech, her sword pierces it through. Yui sits in shock and cannot come to her senses. She cannot believe what has happened. In tears, Yui begins to scream her friend's name frantically and begs for a response. Panic grows stronger and stronger. Meanwhile, Nanami, pulling the sword out of the enemy's body, asks how Yuta is. There are no more enemies in the area. As soon as she says this, an unknown mech on a vehicle approaches them. It passes by Nanami and heads to the defeated Yui. Suddenly it stops next to the girl and reaches out to her. It asks her to be faster, time is short. Crush. Clenched with bitterness, the girl continues to scream about Emina. She cannot leave her in such a state. A voice from the device orders to just take Yui away. The unknown mech hesitates but is forced to obey. Arna stops in front of the fallen enemy and looks at the destroyed mech, notices the Elysian emblem. The surviving captain of the mercenaries, Beast King, remained with a defiant smile. Above all, the equal Iron Knights have won again. He was already thinking about how to raise the stakes next time. The team notices the black mech has disappeared somewhere. Suddenly, from the side of the fallen mech comes a metallic screech and some other sounds. Yuta listens to the sounds, and Aruna assumes that it is the pilot's voice. Maybe he is still alive. The young man jumps out of the mech and rushes to the enemy. His friends try to dissuade him, but the hero is unwavering, because for him now it is just a wounded man. Emina, semi-conscious, hears sounds outside. The enemy, yes, exactly him. She lost. The young man opens the cabin. The girl recalls how she promised to treat Yui to sweets in the imperial capital. In tears, she apologizes to her friend for not keeping the promise. Emina loses consciousness. Looking at the enemy pilot, Yuta notices terrible wounds, but maybe there is still a chance to help her. The hero sharply turns to his friends and asks Aruna if she can do something. The girl says there is a medical capsule in the transport compartment. Let them carry the wounded woman there. The same kind-hearted nature of the protagonist surprises Jean every time. Yuta sarcastically apologizes to his friend for this. With admiration, he asks Aruna if her medical capsule can really heal the wounded pilot. The girl confirms, if it is about ordinary wounds, yes, but the model is outdated, so it will take time. The team began discussing how things are going on the front line. They managed to corner the Kairakia troops. It was only left to wait until they were completely defeated. But the reinforcements turned out to be very strong. From which exact units were they? Aruna noticed that these were magic bags, only instead of the emblem and the country's colors, there were others. The girl recalled an enemy mech with the Elysian emblem. She has no doubt these machines are from there. Jean is outraged by Aruna's words and cannot believe she is serious. But Falma confirms, this is a universal medium-class mechanism for looting, and it is definitely Elysian. Eavesdropping on the friends' conversation, Yuta thinks he has heard the name Elysia somewhere, but where? He asks Jean if Kirk knows about this. He replies that their reconnaissance cannot be relied upon. They did not know this. Nearby. Moreover, if Kirk refuses to pay them this time, they will leave the country. Yudar agreed with his friend's words. They have no place here at all in a place led by such helpless people. At the mercenaries' meeting, the general decided to praise the Iron Knights, saying that they showed themselves at their best in battle. But he immediately added that they refused to reinforce the Beast King mercenaries, after which a report about their defeat was heard. Jean asked the general if this was the full assessment of the combat actions of the Iron Knights during the last battle. The general replied that yes, and added, this time Kirk also won't be able to pay them. Yuta said that then he wants to terminate the contract. The Iron Knights no longer care how serious the enemy is. Now Kirk must rely on his good friends, the mercenaries of the Beast King. In the abandoned cemetery, Yui meets Yudo, who is bent over someone's grave. Unable to stop her tears, the girl says that Emina was killed right before her eyes and she could do nothing. Salty drops fall on the bouquet in her hands. The young man tries to calm her down. Yudo reports the Emperor ordered the extermination of the mercenaries of the Beast King and the forces of Kirk's Republic. No prisoners, no surrender. Yui is insanely angry, so she does not object. Princess Lainel loudly calls Nagisa. The girl turns around and asks what happened. Lainel joyfully reports she managed to get some information about the boy Nagisa is looking for. They also found the merchant who bought him. Hearing this, the girl perked up. But the princess slowed her pace a bit. The merchant was found dead and Yuta himself disappeared. Nagisa looked at her friend in complete confusion. Lainel was confused but said that this is not the same as news of the boy's death. There was a chance he simply ran away. Nagisa, also confused, agreed. Lainel added that Mr. Matsuni called Nagisa. After all, this will be her first mission. Slightly comforting her friend, Lainel said it was too early to draw conclusions. Yuta could very well be sitting somewhere alive and well. I have. In the Majin office, Nagisa again asks the man in shock. He confirms. Next week there will be a meeting of neighboring countries and he wants her to go with him. Of course, Lainel and others will also go with them. It seems to be a mission of extraordinary importance, but Nagisa still does not understand why she was chosen. Majini explains with a smile. It is all because of the desire to show off the semi-radar pride of their country. Alongside preparing furs, Lainel enlightens her friend about the political structure of their world. It will be the Congress of the so-called League of Eastern Nations, an organization uniting 12 small countries. This coalition was created so that small countries could negotiate with larger states on almost equal terms, but without proper support, it is very difficult to do so. Temra, where they are heading, is the center of the League of Eastern Nations, and within the coalition, it is a fairly large country. And on the agenda this time is the recent suspicious activity in the neighboring Empire Raja. Nagisa is curious about what exactly this suspicious activity is. Lainel replied gloomily that it seems they are building up military power, a recent mass purchase of magical mechs and pilots. Nagisa felt an icy anxiety. Lainel confirms that they are preparing for war, and the meeting will be dedicated to measures to prevent it. Meanwhile, at Kirk's on the central square of Tarad, the execution of the former general and captain of the Beast King's mercenaries is about to begin. Mercenary and the former general stand tied to a huge wooden pole. People from all over the district have gathered to watch the show there live burning. A stranger approaches the doomed man and asks if the captain knows her. He rudely replies that he does not know, but who is she anyway? Yui replies that they fought in a recent battle. She piloted a black onyx magical mech. The captain is wounded by this information. Does that mean the one who beat him so brutally is a little girl? Yui denies it because the King of Beasts mercenaries attacked them head-on. She asks the man if any of his allies have already piloted the golden mech. He immediately grimaces with anger. Then the mercenary laughs wildly. He explains to the girl it was not their pilot but a mercenary from the invincible Iron Knights. His strength is immeasurable, and if the captain had not claimed their merits, they would have fallen into the enemy's claws. Huey recalls the team's name. This message is also new to the general public. Boldly grinning, the captain of the mercenaries Beast Kings finally decides to tell the truth. He could not compete with them directly, so he had to resort to tricks. Continuing to grimace, the mercenary adds that the general is a complete fool. If he had not expelled the Iron Knights, they would not have been dragged into this mess. The general rages in powerless fury, beating himself all over. He has a wife and children. The mercenary says it is already too late to raise a fuss and suggests simply dying here together quietly, peacefully. The general sadly asks if those ridiculous results of the Iron Knights were even true. The mercenary continues he did not expect them to be defeated so quickly as soon as the Iron Knights retreated. The punitive offensive of Elysian was truly terrible. Yui was no longer interested in them and she turned away. When asked about her health, the girl replied that she was fine. Somewhere behind, flames rose in a fire that poured heat, but it was not the killers of her friends burning there, not those she had counted on. Nanami points an indignant finger at Jean and declares that here she is dying of boredom. The man tells her to wait until a new job appears, but the girl is stubborn. She wants to get out of here. Aruna states that interesting news has appeared, so they have something to talk about. While Nanami and Falma entertain themselves on the lawn, Jean is delighted by the news. It turns out Kirk's has already fallen. After all, Elijah crushed them with the forces of the best pilots. Returning to Yuta, Aruna says, if this is really so, then we're talking about real monsters. The boy asks if she knows them. The girl replies that she has already dealt with them, and this is definitely the opponent Yuta will never want to fight. While Nanami is insanely happy for some reason, Yuta greedily finishes his food and tells the girl not to go far, but he doesn't get to finish speaking. Seeing the giant, the main character couldn't utter a word and dropped his cup. Nanami seemed to like the creature created in Frankenstein's style, but Yuta stammered when he tried to ask what it wanted. It turned out that the creature was surprisingly friendly. It immediately apologized and explained, there are many different animals in the forest and the aliens have such a big box. So the giant decided that they were poachers. It seemed the creature was talking about a fur cage. Yuta calmed down a bit and explained that they did not come to hunt animals. The monster really seemed satisfied. Calling them good people, the giant extended his hand to Yuta to introduce himself and said his name was Lorgo. In response, the hero also gave his name and thought that Lorgo did not look like a scoundrel at all. The young man asked his new acquaintance if he liked animals. Lorgo replied that he wanted to protect all the animals in this forest. Yuta told the giant that he was a good person. He himself was a little surprised. Lorgo said that once his mother told him to be kind, but now she was dead, so he really succeeded. Then the giant added that his father also died last month and he missed him very much. Yuta concluded that the character of this creature was the opposite of its appearance. The hero suggested to Lorgo to be friends, maybe then he would stop being lonely. Nanami and Falma rushed forward and also offered friendship to this giant. He did not know what to answer. After this touch, Lorgo could not hold back tears and called this day the happiest in his life. The guys offered him to go to their big box. They were friends now, so they could have dinner together. Jean glanced at Lorgo as expected. The giant had the same appetite as him. He greedily devoured one plate after another. Having finished another dish, Lordo asked the boy if he was the same one, the main one from the place they came from. Jean irritably replied that it was 15 plates ago. Aruna began asking her new acquaintance where he lived nearby. He replied that he lived very close. As soon as she caught this, the animated Jenka offered to give the giant a ride. After all, it is dangerous to walk alone at night. Lorgo thanked the guys and said that he would also like to invite them to his place. Yuto did not object, of course, if the whole team could fit in his place. New friends said they were in place. Jean asked again if Lorgo was sure he had not mixed up the road. The giant confirmed the path was correct, but Jean could not believe his own eyes. The house Lorgo turned out to be an old but huge and luxurious castle, just like from a fairy tale. Looking at the majestic castle, Aruna also lost her speech. She asked Lorgo who he was. It turned out that the healthy man found out last month. He is a local lord. Lorca admitted somewhat embarrassedly that although he had invited them as guests, there was almost nothing to see in this house. The boys reassured him. They said it would take a whole day to look around everything here. Jean asked Aruna why Lisa did not come. The girl bitterly said that her friend loved solitude too much and she wished she were more sociable. Meanwhile, Lordo led them to some room. Large. The tall guy pressed the special mechanism and the doors opened. Jean noticed that he was very strict about security here. Lordo said this was the biggest room. He said, until death the father passed on to him what was in this room, and it has been kept here until now. Finally, the father gave him the strength to protect his lands. The team's gaze fell upon a huge, luxuriously decorated fur coat. Now it was Falma's turn and she immediately started praising it. She quickly revealed that it was a magical Mech Ganesh subclass Highlander with a starting power of 15,000 rudia. A very rare machine. There were only a handful of such on the entire continent. Judah asked his new friend if he was Highlander. Lordo confirmed. He was ordered to use the machine if his property was threatened. Jean noted that Lord Lorgo is truly a good master. Not everyone can maintain the priority of safety and practice diligently. The giant modestly scratched the back of his head and said that he is pleased when people speak well of his father. Then Lordo led the team further, and Jean, perplexed, said that he was actually praising him, not his father. The next day, someone began loudly knocking on the castle gate and calling for the master. Loud screams woke Yuta. Lordo opened the door and asked the people what happened. A crowd of dissatisfied farmers stood before him. One of them said that everything had happened. The tools on the aqueducts in the fields had not been repaired by anyone, and the well in the village neither. These cries also woke Jean. Lorgo said he was sorry but did not know what to do about it. The farmers pressed him even harder. Wasn't he a lord? And they were in deep trouble. Jean decided to go out and talk to the dissatisfied peasants. First, he asked what the noise was so early in the morning. They immediately met him with hostility. They asked the stranger to stay away. Jean. Jean just laughed at their words. He confidently stated that his team would figure it out, so let the peasants show what happened there. As a result, Jean skillfully piloted the mechs while they repaired the aqueduct. Let Yuta level the trench, let Nanami move the stones, let Aruna level the spots marked on the map. Yuta watched with enthusiasm as his friend dealt with public works. Jean chuckled, noted, knowledge is the main weapon of a merchant. The aqueduct built by Jean's order was impressive. Lord Go did not know how to thank his new friends. The giant just stood there, choking on accumulated emotions, swaying incessantly. While Yuta was enjoying what he had done, one of the farmers said that next time they must react faster. The young man was about to argue, but Jean stopped him. He was the one who addressed the people and said, when something is done for them, it is not something to be taken for granted. Jean told Lord Go, who was crying nearby, that he apparently really was not fit to be a lord. Jean did not want to offend the giant, but still tried to explain. The good news was that he had to return these lands to the ruler of the country. Lordo objected. After all, he had promised his father to protect the people who lived here. The genie looked at him for a moment and stepped back. It was time to say goodbye to Lorgo. The boys thanked him. They were glad to have visited Heimvin, if only briefly. Bama told her friend to eat well and asked Nanami to take care of herself. Jean demanded that Lord Lorgo impose harsh trials on his ungrateful peasants, and Aruna said, call him if anything is needed. Yuta, after saying goodbye, added that they are true friends. Lisa said goodbye nervously and left, leaving Lordo to wonder who she was. When the team finally set off, Jean admitted their new friend was a funny guy. Nanami noted that they should have invited the giant to join the Iron Knights. Yuta agreed, but Lord Lorgo was still the lord of the lands. Jen still thought it would be a burden for him. Yuta agreed, but said he could not force Lord Go to leave everything here and go with them. Suddenly, Jen turned the entire team's attention to the Eastern plan. Two mechs stood in the center of the square. The red-haired man noted that there are neither vassals nor soldiers here, and these lands are ruled by only one foolish lord, so capturing them will not be difficult. While the men were discussing their treacherous plans, they did not even notice Jean and Aruna. Before the villain could recover, Aruna pressed a knife to his throat, promising to share this thrilling story. For now, a colossal explosive flash occurred in the lands of Lorgo. Bandits surrounded Lorgo from all sides, but he did not surrender until the very end. This angered them. One of the villains noticed that there were at least 30 mechs on their side. 2 dropped out, leaving 28. Lorgo burst out in a scream of furious rage. Noticing a free passage, the villains rushed forward and Lorgo dashed after them. The peasants ran out of their huts hearing the sounds of battle. Breaking into tears, Lorgo said he could do nothing for his people, but just then a bandit grabbed him and demanded that he get out of the way. The main hero and Aruna witnessed a man lying down being beaten. 2 mechs controlled by bandits were kicking Lorgo inside the mighty Ganesha. He was already in a very miserable state, all battered. You shouted at his friend at the top of your voice that you were already on your way to help. Lorgo could not believe that his friends were here. Crying again, the Lord admitted he does not know what to do next. He tried to protect everyone but his promise to his father. Yuta told his friend not to cry, the team would handle it. The hero added that Lorgo did wonderfully, and that was exactly what the giant wanted to hear. The team tore them apart without any mercy, and the bandits felt panic rising. Where did these guys come from? There were no problems to deal with the gang. You would just look at the piles of fallen scrap and finally breathe a sigh of relief. Grateful Lorgo did not know how to approach him, and the hero finally decided to offer him to go with them. Lorgo was about to tell his father about his promise again, but the men from the village started shouting and stopped him. The big man asked the people why they had not fled yet, and the villagers honestly replied, he is not suitable for the role of ruler. Lorgo sadly agreed, and then the villagers suggested that he go with his friends. A villager in a hat said that maybe they do not understand modern engineering, but they can handle themselves. A villager with a mustache added, why limit yourself with promises when you have already done enough? Finally, the villager in the hat conveyed to Lorgo the main truth needed by the big man. Lorgo turns his head and looks for Yuta. Finding the hero, he approaches him and asks, how can he, a simple country bumpkin, help the team? The big guy is nervous that he will only mess everything up. To be continued. The protagonist calms his friend and advises just to set off on the journey. Wiping tears of happiness and gratefully shaking Yuta's hands, Lorgo solemnly proclaims, he will no longer hold the position of lord of these lands. The problem surfaced again. Lurgo could not initially formalize the right to transfer his lands. The amount of paperwork amazed Jean. The boy irritably reminded his friend that paper is a valuable resource. After Jean checked the next scribbled record, he calmed down. It seemed everything was correct. Now the rights to Lurgo's lands could be transferred to someone else. Nanami joyfully asked if their new friend could stay with them forever. Lurgo confirmed. Falma said they needed to choose a room for him. Aruna reminded that it was time to give the paper to the ruler. Meanwhile, Emina woke up inside a medical capsule. Opening her eyes, the girl tries to understand where she is and recall what happened to her. Emina does not understand how she ended up in the capsule. Rubbing her temple, she gets up. From time to time, fragments of memories from the last battle flash in her head. But the girl still cannot gather this chaos into one. In any case, she needs to figure out the situation. Emuna entered the room just as Yuta was dragging a pile of dishes to the sink. The boy flinched from surprise and, frightened, dropped everything on the floor. He tried to hint to the girl that there was no need to hurry. Not immediately understanding what he meant, Emina lowered her gaze and blushed. Jean immediately noticed this was a colossal turn. After some time, Emina, already dressed, said that the boys failed to convince her. She remembered very well how they fought against the Beast King's mercenaries and how they were defeated. Yuta tried to explain that it was not so. Emuna and her comrades fought against them, invincible Iron Knights, and Emuna herself was defeated by the golden magical Mech Vajra. After that, looking at the hero for a moment, Emina replied that even if she believed it, there was one thing she could not understand at all. Namely, that this mechanism was controlled by a small child. As soon as she said this, the girl pointed at Nanami, unable to believe that this very young girl was piloting that mech. Nanami approached Emina and, squeezing her hand, apologized. The girl, calling with her eyes, said that she was unbearable and asked if it hurt. Snorting in surprise, Emina asked if Nanami had lost her mind. Not accepting defeat, the girl slammed the table and demanded that Nanami fight her in an honest duel. Nanami flinched and said that she actually did not like it. Jean looked bored and said he did not approve of this fight. After all, you can't make a penny from it. He told Emina that he understood him. The man immediately perked up and suggested making a bet. His eyes were already burning with the light of money. It still needs to be decided on which mech Emina will pilot the duel. Aruna and Falma refused to lend theirs. Yuta offered his Alio, but that mech. Yuta looked at the girl and saw that she was already signing some contract issued by Jean. He managed to promote himself in time. The hero did not consider this the best idea. After signing the papers, Emina rushed to find Lev. Quickly explained that it was white magical fur and said something about its maneuverability. Yuta wanted to say that this was exactly why Lev was needed, but he didn't manage to finish. Sit down. Sitting in white fur, Emina noticed that Alio was already quite old. Well then, she had to activate him, but nothing happened. Emma's screams came from the cabin. She was not some ordinary Highlander, she already had over 20,000. Jean was already looking at the contract. It stated that in case of unsuccessful activation, the victory would automatically be awarded to Nanami. This was exactly what Yuta wanted to tell her earlier. Emina was furious. The girl shouted indignantly that she had been cheated by being given a non-working fur thing, and that in such a case the match was invalid. Jean looked again at the contract. The application for the game costs 500,000 and the reward for victory is the same as the equipment rental. So, in the end, Emina owes 1.5 million and he added another 500,000 on top. The girl cut him off and did not agree to pay a single word so that it would not be dumped on her here. Suddenly, heavy footsteps sounded from behind. She turned around and saw some kind of monster. Jean told Lordo that this girl was simply terrible. Almost simultaneously, Emina agreed to pay and only asked to be taken to the nearest rattle bank. But at the branch, it turned out that the client was considered dead, so his account was frozen. The girl was confused. Aruna, who was standing nearby, said, apparently in her native lands, Emina's were recorded as deceased. It turned out she was in trouble. The girl is almost crying. She is alive at least now, she suspects. If so, the only way to pay off the debt is to settle it with her own body. The team is pulling some cargo and Jean is shouting at them. They need to move 10 more magnetic blocks and 3 dozen nanotubes and preferably do it as quickly as possible. Holding a bulky suitcase in her hands, Emina looks at this photo with surprise. Jean turns around and explains that he meant help in mercenary trade. The girl will repay her debt by working for him. But the idea of becoming a mercenary pleased Emina, and she said she would gladly try. Jen seriously announced, from now on, Emina is a rookie in the ranks of the unparalleled Iron Knights. And for mercenary work, this is extremely important. Choose F. Pick up the magic mech, said Jean. He added that since Emina will be driving the car, the choice is hers. The girl was pleasantly surprised. But almost immediately the guy noted, the more expensive the fur she chooses, the more Emina's debt will grow. The girl thought that this Jen was extremely clever. Then Nanami pointed to some fur product and said she wanted it. Jean replied she did not choose the fur, and Falma immediately launched into a lecture about this fur, its features and history. No one really listened, but the girl did not care. And Emina thought about it. After watching them for some time, she realized this group of mercenaries was quite different from what she had seen in the ranks of the Elysium army. Especially this guy Yudo, he reminds her so much of Yui. Smiling at her own thoughts, Emina decided that she did not mind staying here a little longer. Having found out the amount Emina would pay per day, Yuda got scared of his friend. Jean asked Yuda to be quiet and whispered in his ear that if you take into account the rent for the fur, food, and accommodation, it comes to 9,500, and this with a daily payment of 10,000. Judah even felt a little sorry for her new friend. Meanwhile, Jean continued, Emina said she was a Highlander beyond the threshold of 20,000, right? And such pilots, by the way, are not lying around on the road. These talks about money did not go unnoticed by Emina to say that she was not at all worried would be untrue. Emina wanted to say something, but Lisa immediately interrupted her. The spells from the magical fur she bought turned out to be too specific and Emina didn't know what to do with them. She nervously apologized. Nanami kept pulling all the time. She was tired and wanted to go swimming. Aruna said that new weapons might suit her. Jean cursed his annoying friends what expensive workers they are. Then he cooled down and agreed. After all, he wanted to get out somewhere because they had already arrived in this city. The team reached the luxurious self-built building Idaspa, resembling a palace. Jean solemnly raised his finger towards him and noted that he had long wanted to visit here at least once. The man said that there are different types of baths and massages here. Moreover, there was also a sauna first-class deep wellness. Judah decided that it was a sanatorium. One of the guys said he did not expect anything else from the Earthlings. Another added, allegedly, according to rumors, the owner of this establishment was also originally from Earth. The girl at the reception told the company that the men's changing room is on the left and the women's on the right. Yuda asked Jean if there are mixed baths here. His friend confirmed he doesn't understand why the hero is so surprised. Finally, the hero relaxed in the bath softly, with pleasure. All the accumulated tension disappeared. It was This piece clung too much to the spirit of his native Japan. Calmly, no one bothers him, and suddenly someone splashed water right in his face. A woman's voice thundered that Yada was bothering her and that he should get away. Some brazen girl declared that she would go there right now, so let the young man go. Behind her, like a statue, stands a servant. After calming his nerves a bit, Yuda asked the girl who she was anyway. He also thought, there are plenty of places here, so why should he leave? The stranger replied with a counter-question. Is Yuda suggesting she swim with a young man she doesn't even know? The main character said that he did not care and would not go anywhere. The girl snapped her fingers, calling the servant Arthur, who stood behind him with a blissful face. He understood the lady's order without any words and, bowing low, began to carry it out. Arthur's calm expression suddenly changed to angry and he lunged at Yuda, frantically trying to pull the hero out of the bath, so the servant scolded, "This is Mrs. Lynn Carlo's house. Get out or you will be in trouble."
Maruna appeared just in time and, with a scream, kicked Arthur in the nose. The servant flew to the other end of the pool. Mrs. Maruna 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 Maruna.
Lynn Carlo was outraged. What does this stranger think she is allowed to do? How could she hit her well-groomed face, the object of her pride, in front of people? And what if it had been damaged? It turns out Arthur would lose his key advantage. The servant's face twisted grotesquely from Aruna's blow. The unfortunate man called for the mistress, but she noticed everything good in him had already disappeared. Lin Carlo stated that her patience had completely lost it. If it had come to this, there would be a duel. Pointing a finger at Yuta and Aruna, she demanded that they fight her, but the guys were already relaxing in the bathhouse. Yuta and Aruna came up with a way to throw this strange girl into a competition who can last longer in the sauna. They assured her it would be 2 against 2, a fight to the death. The girl agreed but demanded that they enter at the same time. The team that lasts longer wins, and the loser will do everything the winner demands. Aruna agreed to the terms. She added, if Lena Carlo loses, she will make her dance naked. In response, the girl promised, if Yuta and Aruna lose, she will bring them down from the heavens to the earth. Only the punishment remained to be devised. Finally, 4 of them entered the sauna. It was hotter there than Lin Carlo expected. The perfect place for a competition, in her opinion. The boys quickly regretted their idea. They decided to go down lower where the heat was not so intense. Lin Carlo teased them for that. The short-statured characters really did sit so low it was almost as if their words were barely spoken. In 5 minutes the lady said she could no longer endure and from then on relied on Arthur. With these words she headed for the exit. The faithful servant replied that she could count on him. Aruna admitted that it was really hard and asked you not to overdo it. The boy said uncertainly that he could hold on a little longer. Returning to Arthur, he warned him too, not to get worked up either. But it turned out that Arthur was exhausted to the point of almost being a corpse. The boy, exhausted for the sake of his lady's glory, had to be handed over to the doctors. The angry Lin Carlo sharply told the boys, don't think you've already won. After all, this was a 3-legged match and next will be a breath-holding duel. Yuta tried to calm the girl, saying that it was too exhausting and it was time to stop. Suddenly, Arthur's voice sounded from the side. He was calling the mistress and crawling towards her. Rejoicing to see the living servant, Lin Carlo demanded that the competition begin. 20 seconds passed and the lady again left everything to Arthur. The half-dead servant was carried out on a stretcher again. Lin Carlo said they had 3 rounds left. Judo replied that 2 had already passed and that he and Aruna had already won them. But the annoying stranger noticed, in the 3rd round the points tripled. Yuta couldn't resist and said that Lin Carlo was a real thorn. Why couldn't she choose something she was really strong at? But in the end, they still ended up together in the water swimming. The girl smiled defiantly and looked at the protagonist with a terrifying expression. Did he just say he wanted to compete in what she was really strong at? Yuta and Aruna looked at Lin Carlo with fear. Her words promised nothing good and she carried herself too confidently. As it turned out, what Miss Lin Carlo was best at was magical sacks. First of all, she wanted to praise the boys for not running away with their tails between their legs. While the lady was saying this, loyal Arthur grew threateningly in the background as if he had finally come to his senses and was ready to serve her. After Lin Carlo looked at the team of Yuta and Aruna, he declared that 2 of their strongest pilots would fight her. How did they like this propose? Yuta still did not understand what all the others had to do with it. Falma was already looking at the mistress's fur and her servant, hardly believing her eyes. Suddenly, a suspicion flashed through Aruna, maybe Lin Carlo. One of the 12 magnificent emperors of Thunder, Lin Carlo. In response to Aruna's words, the girl said, since they already knew about her, they had every right to run away. No one would judge them. Judy said they would not run away. After all, he was the one who proposed it first. Nanami, who stood nearby, replied, after the hero, she is the best, Jin. Jin shouted, trying to negotiate with his friends. The main hero confirmed that he heard. As far as he knew, he was a world-famous big shot. Jin said this, confused, something like that. Lin Carlo was satisfied with the agreement and suggested choosing an opponent for her knight apprentice Arthur. Arthur himself, bowing again, noted that he was a centaur pilot. Hanami asked to pass this to her, confidently stating that she would smash the apprentice knight to pieces. From the first set, Jin asked the guys if they were ready. He said the game would continue until they won 2 victories. The match had just started. A luxuriously inlaid mechanical centurion made of metal rushed straight at Vajra. Nanami was gripped by fear. The centaur rushing towards her was the equivalent of cavalry. Falma asked her friend to be careful, reminding her that the offensive power of this mech exceeds 30,000. The attack was of colossal force. The ground shook, not without difficulty, but Nanami still managed to repel it. Lina Carlo, who was watching the fight, could not believe it. This girl managed to stop the centaur's charge on the very first try. Could it be that she too was beyond 30,000? but will she withstand the second strike, Arthur? Arthur delivers the second strike, and Nanami watches her opponent intently, as if pondering something. The centaur rushes straight at her and she rushes to meet him. Arthur is confused and Falma is mortally afraid, shouting to her friend that it is dangerous. And Vajra again and again tears straight at him. Arthur thinks that her opponent has lost her mind. If not, then why is she throwing herself directly at the spear of his centaur? But Nanami stops a few centimeters from the blade, and with a strong blow, Vajra cuts the centaur's legs, breaking them in half. Jean exclaims that it was an incredible match, and that's it. Victory goes to Nanami. Lin Carlo scolds the student crawling at her feet. How could he lose to this child? Then she turns to Yuta and Nanami and says that everything is fine. She was going to deal with them herself anyway. She will be SH. We will show them why she is called the Thunder Empress. Then Carlo proudly declares that she will show Nanami and Yuta why she is called the Thunder Emperor. The opponents are asked if they are ready. The red-haired girl replies that of course she is ready. She promises to finish this literally in a minute, so she suggests getting straight to business. Nanami, with doubt, asks again about the minute. It is announced that the match begins. Nanami shouts that she has enough strength for a new enemy. Lin replies supposedly the girl likes to boast and that's it. She cuts off her thought there, not finishing her sentence. Falma immediately understands everything. She shouts to her friend to be careful because rumors say Lin Odin has Carlo. There is an unpredictable long-range attack. While she speaks, the Thunder Empress uses it. Nanami notices it too late and she doesn't have time to dodge. The weapon is torn from the mech's hands and the battlefield is instantly covered with fog. Sand, raised into the air, rises as a solid curtain. Lin snorts as if asking herself and thinks aloud whether she overdid it. But then the fog disperses and Nanami's fur falls back into place. The girl exclaims in amazement. She had no idea it would be like that. The hero. During the clash, the hero's friend forcibly asks the opponent how she is capable of such a thing if she is already covered, and so much so that she cannot even see. The blonde replies that she is surprisingly smart. Her appearance was able to deceive her. When the centaur grabs Vajra's armed hand, Nanami gasps in surprise at this technique. She is told that Lin Carlo is one of a dozen truly skilled, not that she is underestimated. Dark. The dark-haired girl does not understand what is happening and how Vajra can lose power. Lin replies that a lot of time has passed since someone forced her to resort to such a technique, so she wants to enjoy it to the fullest. After these words, the girl strikes the mech's head with close combat, and the spectators are amazed. The fog disperses, revealing a mangled hole where Vajra's head should have been. Nanami tries to catch her breath, then chokes and stammers, asking if she has lost it. Lin bares her teeth and asks how his opponent feels as soon as he begins to use the new technique. Jen is confused and does not believe the power gathered in the hands of the dozen seniors. The Thunder Empress is already confident at this time. Victory is hers. She sharply turns around and, pointing at the hero, directs her mechs and says that now it's his turn. Yuta thinks to himself, such an unpredictable long-range attack is undoubtedly a formidable weapon. He notices the shield that Nanami was holding has no damage from the attack. Is it just a shockwave, or does the hit affect certain parts of the mechanism? He asks his girlfriend aloud if he can borrow her sword and shield. The girl agrees and says that the guy should really beat Lena up well. Yudita. Yuta grabs the weapon and takes a fighting stance. Jen announces in any case they have the final round. He mentally notes, honestly, he almost forgot that there is even a competition going on here. Then he says that the loss will be on both sides. This is the final. The hero thinks if his assumption is correct, then while the shield is raised, he has a chance to stop her attack. Lin, still boldly smiling, asks how long, in his opinion, he can hold out. Zoria. The start of the match is announced. The opponents immediately rush at each other. Yuta is scared but manages to raise his shield. In tension, he shouts. The hero notices how strong the blow is, and if he goes into close combat, he won't have time to finish. She is attacked again. Yuta wonders why they don't want to admit it. The girl just curls her lips and extends her hand, showing that she understands. Lin realizes he thought she simply couldn't attack so directly several times. The hero gets angry and curses. The Thunder Emperor delivers another powerful blow. Yuta raises the shield, but it shatters under the pressure of her strength. The hero throws the shield to the ground and cuts through her attack with the blade. This amazes her wildly. He says, even losing his shield, he managed to get very close to her. Lin urges him to act. She had no idea that someone would again manage to bring her to this step. The girl announces that she will now demonstrate to him the full power of her Odin and raises her weapon. He stuck it into the ground and it begins to collapse, and then a storm appears. The man understands that this is a mid-range attack and he didn't even know that was possible at all. He groans from the tension and sees everything has turned against him. And the spectators understood this too. They shout that Lin has already suffered enough from him. Jack worries about who will fix everything now. Aluna notices something. She sees Yuta focusing on Ludia. Power flows around the hero. Emperor of Thunder does not understand what kind of aura this is. Is the hero still hoping to turn the situation to his advantage? She asks what kind of bluff this is and notes he cannot resort to blindness and not see the damage he has already received. The hero rapidly approaches the centaur. Lin did not expect him to continue the attack. She launches a mid-range attack storm. At that moment, Yuta also begins to concentrate his power and breaks through closer to her. Her battle suit partially tears, the upper part comes off. The match ends and everyone heads to their bases. Jack praises the hero for his excellent work. Aruna notes that this is exactly what she expected from her beloved husband. Emina draws attention and asks what that was at the end, what he did. Yuta does not understand what she is talking about, what he did. The girl runs up to him, grabs him by the neck, and demands an explanation of what the hell is going on here. The boy does not know what to answer. At that moment, Lin Carlo approaches them. She calls Yuta. He greets her and tries to remember the name of her companion. He tells her that his name is Arthur. The girl, stumbling and very nervous, asks how he managed to stand against her. She even says that he did well. The boy is surprised by her words. He tries to answer something. Lin cuts him off and says, yes, if she had acted, she could have fought better, but since their team stopped the fight, this time she declares a draw. The hero agrees after all, they are done. But she considers it incredible and thinks that Yuta managed her, so she has a proposal. We need to hire them. Jack asks her to wait a minute. He asks why she would even hire someone considering her bravery. Lin is silent for a while. And then he asks if they do not know that she has another side different from Thunder Emperor. It has been announced that her full name is Lin Carlo Dadenberg II. She is the third princess of the Kingdom of Malteria and the former commander of the magical Mech military corps. Rumors say the neighboring empire Daurakia suffered hundreds of losses after the war with Ne. After those events, it became a source of fear for people and was called the goddess of destruction. This is all that Aluna knows about it. Jack tells the third princess that she has already made it clear she cannot speak in the city center and asks what she wants. The girl thinks about how to explain everything correctly. She says that the king of Malteria is currently in critical condition, which is why the kingdom is in such an unstable situation. She is ninth in line to the throne but has no intention of taking it. In any case, the choice will be made among the first 5 heirs, and the first Prince Mushim is simply a soulless demon walking in the flesh, and if he comes to power, their country will perish. In any case, a council regarding succession is being convened soon and she wants to present them there. It is still unknown whether they will come, and the hero does not understand if they should appear at all. Lin replies that of course, they must do so. She wants them to become a new spark for the royal family. The heroes remain silent in response. Only Jacques throws out that she is just like some kind of person. Everyone goes into the castle. The man notices that it looks very suspicious. The princess explains, behind these doors is the room for the royal family gathering around the round table. The doors open for them. They enter. To enter a room full of people. The hero is overwhelmed with surprise when a man approaches him. He asks Princess Lin Carlo who these plebeians are, and if she does not know that only members of the royal family are allowed into the sacred hall of the round table. The girl replies to Prime Minister Blore that these are mercenaries she hired, so she asks him not to be rude. The rest do not pay attention to this conversation. One of the men again spoke about mercenaries and asked Lin Carlo not to make him laugh. Has she really decided to go against the rule? No heir to the throne is allowed to keep military forces. The princess turns to the builder brother and says that, despite being mercenaries, there are no more than 10 of them with her, and so far she has hired them only to accompany her during negotiations. Another person intervenes in their conversation. He notices that this is just an innocent prank of the younger sister. Builder does not understand why Brother Mushim says such a thing. Yuta hears the name all the way to the memory of how he was called a demon. He looks at the man. Could it really be him? Mushim whispers to his brother that these are just a few mercenaries, nothing serious. He understands that this is true because the ones to fear are not them. Builder loudly declares that his service has 2,000 magical mechs, so despite all the advantages, he has no time to finish. Lin approaches them and asks if she heard correctly. Now they have 2,000 magical furs at their disposal. Is that exactly what they just said? Really? Is it possible that this is about her successor, as Commander Cruise and Mushim is shocked by her insight? Or maybe there is a connection with rumors that she is the one with whom Mushim's brother spends the nights. The man shouts at his sister and humiliates her in response. Yuta covers the princess and demands that they stop. Another fourth person intervenes in the conversation. She also asks them to calm down quickly. This man reminds them that this is a meeting in a sacred dream. The brother and sister fall silent. The hero sees in horror. Everything here is stretched to the limit. This is It sounds like aristocratic quarrels, and it immediately feels like he is on the pages of a history book. Blur suggests moving on to the main topic of the meeting, the contenders for the throne, the third. The third princess asks if it is really necessary to discuss this, if the king has already announced the name of the heir. This is Crown Prince Yuden, and she believes he is perfect for this role. Mushim quietly talks about Yuden and asks not to make him laugh because he is the first prince. He is Sa. He loudly says that the king made this choice lying in a hospital bed and delirious, so it is hard to believe that he was capable of making a sober, balanced decision. Lin responds by asking if he means, when a person lies sick in bed, they lose their much praised, insightful understanding. Her brother advises her not to get too carried away, even if the meaning of Ludia is a bit high for her, and this is by no means a reason to behave so arrogantly. He looks He glances at the minister, who understands everything and returns to the conversation. The man asks about the key question: who, in their opinion, should inherit the throne. He suggests deciding this by voting. Lin shouts that she protests because the king's will is inviolable, which means the crown prince must inherit the throne. Mushim calmly notes that the girl behaves extremely disgustingly, and he himself agrees with this. Builder supports him, and he also agrees. Then the prime minister asks everyone present to express their position on approving the vote. If they agree, they raise their hand. Everyone raises their hands. There is no way to object. Lin can only get angry anyway. After the motion was approved by a majority of votes, it was announced. In 5 days there will be a council to adopt a resolution. 5 dukes and 4 adult members of the royal family will participate among the interested parties. The third princess is still angry about the decision that was made. After the meeting, the heroes enter a separate room for discussion. Lin says this is exactly what she expected. At this pace, Mushim will become king. Judo. Because of this, we remind, as said earlier, there supposedly exists a voting plan. Jack explains that usually the results of votes involving important government officials are determined even before the voting itself begins. The girl says that it is so. The third princess reveals that the second Prince Balder, the second Princess Lindell, Prime Minister Blur, Father Pierre Musham, Duke Karen, and Duke Homer, who has business ties with Mushama. That's all. This is how far his influence will stretch if he votes. Utah counted everything on his fingers. He is surprised to realize that there are 5 of them, and that comes from the calculation that there should be 9. Jack says, I knew it would be like this. These people have already decided everything and just want to hide behind the voting. Luna asks, maybe someone has any ideas. Lin says at this stage of the game, only she and the first Princess Rilia will vote for Yuden, but the dukes, Reidmart and Balerma, do not like Mushim. They can be persuaded. The problem is only 1 vote. The hero suggests convincing the second prince or princess. The girl replies that it won't work. It's hard to even imagine because they think alike. So she thinks they need to get to Duke Homel if they only want business, a place from which they can negotiate. Yuta does not fully understand what she is talking about. Lin, before starting to explain, gives them 100 million as an advance compensation for repairing the damaged furs. She promises to pay the rest after the work is completed. Jack likes that she pays in advance. The girl replies she never goes back on her word. The hero notes to himself, actually at the beginning that was not enough. The young prince enters the room pushing a cart with sacks. He asks his sister to introduce him to the guests. She agrees and introduces everyone to her younger brother, Yuden. He says he is glad to meet them and extends his hand. Yuta is showing off money and introduces himself in response as one of the unmatched knights of style. He introduces the prince to Jean and Aluna. Jean glances at the money and asks if it belongs to Yuta. He has no idea whether the princess really has nothing of her own. Lin blushes and replies, no, her brother just covered for her a little this time. Then the man does not understand how she will be able to pay them all in full. The girl promises to settle immediately as soon as she receives her share as a member of the royal family. Yuden shouts that his sister has reasons not to give the money back. He explains that it is because of the families of soldiers who died in battle. His sister pays them assistance every year, so she herself constantly lacks her own funds. The princess notes that this is already clear. These people fought for the royal family. They cared for the remaining members of their families and helped them. This is the least they can do to bring their loved ones back from battle. The princess considers it her duty. The heroes silently look at her. Yuta thinks that maybe she overthought and drew the wrong conclusions. Aluna suggests postponing talks about money, and the main question now is how exactly she plans to win Duke Gomel to her side. Lin says that today bands of marauders roam throughout the Duchy of Gomel, with material damages estimated at 30 billion gold. These robbers are former warriors from the destroyed Stuttgart. So she plans to lure out his voice by promising to settle this matter, and now she wants to hear the opinion of the heroes. Jack understands that she wants their group to handle these guys. The girl confirms this and says that Arthur will join them later. Arthur first nodded, then asked Agin in shock. The boy does not understand why they need him at all anymore. The princess says it is unfair to send them there alone, and he is not needed here either, so it turns out he now has free time. Arthur continues to complain. Lin sends the heroes on a mission and says she now relies on them. Jack asks her not to let them down in the firm faith of two dukes. She asks for this, not worrying, and then Jack thinks that maybe he is not giving his all for her. If he continues to behave like this, he will never gain her approval. Yuta joins him too. He is interested in Arthur's position and his status. The boy replies, he and Mrs. Lin Carlo have strong ties. The hero notes, that's wonderful, Arthur. Arthur, son of another Count Rick Elmer, graduated from Knightly Academy and was the best in his class, and now he is a knight apprentice to the beautiful, charming, and elegant Lina Carlo. Yuta secretly doubts that Lin is a refined person and aloud asks why Arthur is even a squire. Isn't he already a full-fledged knight? The latter replies that his lady has not yet recognized him as such. The hero approaches Leza, who is repairing a fur coat. He has a thought spinning in his mind. Isn't it hard for her to do all this constantly by herself? The girl confirms and demands to hire an assistant mechanic, stating that at least once they mentioned her before throwing away all this mess. Yuta froze in thought when she remembered something. He won. He is gnawed by the question, what exactly makes Arlio so strong? Lisa does not know the answer to this question. She thought he should know better and said, the connection with magical fur is a kind of deal. The hero agrees, but still does not understand what exactly determines the uniqueness and potential of this fur. The girl says that it is primarily the power of Ludiaker, and on the other hand, the influence of innate elemental forces is manifested. Although 90 is still determined by the Ludia base, and yet no one fully knows either the structure or the principles of interaction of all components, everyone uses them simply because they understand how. The higher the quality of the core, the better the machine corresponds to the pilot's meaning of Ludia. And if you look at it from this angle, Arlio is clearly not a masterpiece with its requirements even for a start. And if you think about it, maybe the matter is not in it at all. The hero does not understand what she is talking about. Lisa turns to Yuta and says that it is all because of his too high level of Ludia. Yuta is silent, pondering these words. At this moment, Yui thinks that Emina is dead. She is die. She still cannot fully come to terms with it. The girl begins to talk about the unparalleled Knights of Steel, but she is interrupted by a knock on the door. The man calls Lady Yue and says that the Emperor wants to see her, so she should go to the audience hall. About her friend, she previously inquired about the one who was sold to that merchant. He says he has demands. Yu joyfully asks if he was found. He t t t t t t t t t t t t t t t t t. They tell her it's not time yet because he joined a small country called Rudvi where he had conflicts with the military. Yui is scared by information about the military. She wonders if everything has already been safely resolved. The man does not yet know all the details. Special forces are being sent there now, so he will have to wait a bit. The girl sadly thinks that in such moments she lacks a hero nearby. She is tormented by the thought, will the pain in her chest ever subside? She remembers Yuta's face and quietly calls his name, the girl. The girl is brought into the audience hall. The king says he heard that recently she has been falling into depression because of Emina and asks if she has managed to cope with it at all. Yui replies that she is very touched by His Majesty's concern and, to be honest, still cannot say that she has recovered. The king interrupts her. She should not force herself, but he came across several truly interesting documents in the old archives. They say that the shrine tomb of the great sage is hidden deep in Devil's Forest. He plans to send a research team there to check if it's true. Yui, do you want to join? The name of the legendary supreme sage is Rafshul, and rumors say that he created the first combat mech. The king watches what she will say. Could she really sit locked in the room all day? Maybe a change of scenery will do her good. The girl thinks about his words. She agrees with them, sits in her room, and sinks into heavy thoughts. She really wants to join the expedition. The man allows it. He has already ordered her to prepare, so now she will discuss the details with him. SB. The maid thanks her for agreeing to participate in the expedition to the shrine. Yui replies that there is no need for that because it will only benefit her there. She will be able to distract herself. She is told that the expedition currently consists of 3 scientists, 2 highlighters with statistics over 20,000, a dozen 10,000 ers from different countries, 20 mechs, and 50 soldiers for protection. Yui finds this impressive. However, this is quite justified. Once in that area, thousands of giant beasts wildly destroyed everything around, so it was incredibly difficult for a small group of people to do this. Although the man says that all these animals have long been extinct, the girl understands this with some fear. The new squad welcomes her Mary from the USA and Enrique. They are happy to meet each other. Huey introduces himself in response. The man says that these are the same 2 he mentioned earlier, Goriani, with indicators over 20,000. The girl is glad to meet them. She hopes they will work together. In her thoughts, she asks Emina to forgive her. If Yui does not do something right now, she will not be able to recover. They announce readiness to depart and ask her to board. Yui whispers about the unparalleled Knights of Steel. She believes that no matter what, sooner or later, they will definitely meet face to face. The heroes are transported to the Gomel Duchy of the Maltirian Kingdom. They are greeted by Duke Gomel. He asks if they really delivered a message from Her Highness Linacarlo. The heroes are transported to the Gomel Duchy of the Maltirian Kingdom. Arthur bows and extends a letter, saying that the princess gave the Duke a personal letter and asks him to read it. Homo is surprised. This is personal. He cannot even imagine what that poor princess might offer him. Arthur begins to get angry after these words, but Luna stops him. Jack thinks that this guy is still in her faithful knight mode. The Duke asks if they will really put an end to the marauders in his domains in exchange for his vote for Yuden's ascension to the throne. It sounds intriguing, quite a bold proposal. The man did not think that this silly beggar was capable of something like that, but in any case, he agreed to the proposal. Arthur became even angrier and tried to attack the Duke with his fists. Aluna stopped him again, and Jack thought that this guy was a real villain. The heroes go outside. Aluna suggests splitting up and gathering information about the marauders. Jack divides everyone into pairs. Their goal is to find out where the bandits are hiding. In the evening, when the bell rings, they will meet at this place. When Emina asks why she ended up paired with the hero, Yuta shyly says that they were supposed to be distributed evenly. The girl thinks over his words. The young man understands. This is terribly awkward. Yuta asks if Emina has already gotten used to this. She replies that a little yes. After that, it becomes quiet again. The hero tries to ask what interests her. The girl says that he does not have to force himself to talk to her. After some time, Emina says shopping. At first, Yuta does not understand what exactly she is talking about. The girl explains that it is a hobby, exactly what he asked about. Now he understands, so she likes to go shopping. Since they are planning to gather information anyway, maybe they should visit the local shops. Emina agrees but asks, is it appropriate? The boy replies that it is fine. The girl looks at the price tags in horror while they try to sell the hero ace. The man asks if they like the vase. Yuta explains that he does not need it. The seller does not give up. The vase is so wonderful, why not take it? The hero shouts in frustration. Does the man have such bad hearing? They continue showing him the vase while he explains that they just wanted to find out if he had heard anything about the marauders who have been ravaging these places recently. The hero is so shocked that he cannot finish speaking. Kramer says then it is better for them to return home. Yuta does not understand. The man again more insistently demands that they go home. The heroes leave and Yuta is angry because they questioned 10 people but no one said anything. Emuna thinks they just do not want to talk, although it seems they do know something. Yuta asks if this is not strange to her because shouldn't the actions of these robbers cause problems for the locals? At that moment someone calls them and asks if they are tracking their bandit activity. The men insist they have something important to tell them, but first they need to go somewhere where they can talk privately. The heroes hesitate for a moment at the proposal. When Emuna agrees to go, she wants to hear what they will say. Yuta is not satisfied with this. The heroes enter a narrow alley when the blonde says that it seems they are conducting some reconnaissance. These people suddenly grab weapons and swear they will not let the heroes go too far because they all owe many of these bandits. Emuna does not hesitate. She grabs the blonde by the hand and hits him. Then she disarms him and takes the knife. The dark-haired man tries to look threatening, but the girl stops him. She orders him to lower the knife and hand it to his accomplice. The man is terribly afraid and does everything. Yuta picks up the weapon, but he is shaking from shock given her military experience. It was quite expected. Emuna begins to ask the first man if he is from the band of robbers. He answers no. Then she asks why they owe them so much. The man explains, the robbers take food and money from the nobility and then share it with them. The girl's next question is when they will arrive and where they will go. The man with blonde hair does not know that they arrive without warning and just as silently disappear. Emuna asks where. He answers, maybe somewhere near Mount Dina. She wonders what else they might know. The men swear they know nothing more. After that, they are released. The attackers flee, arguing about who is more to blame for what happened. Yuta admires Emuna. She dealt with them in a moment. The girl replies, they did not find out anything, so we need to return to the task. They continue to interrogate the residents. At one of the stalls, the hero notices a hairpin similar to the one Yui had. He draws Emuna's attention and asks if she likes someone. The girl is very surprised and blushes at such a question. She hesitates and asks why he suddenly asks about that. Yuta replies that he just has one, although about a girl she doesn't know. He says that now they are separated and he has no idea where she might be. He never found the time to tell her what is on his heart. Maybe she doesn't think about him at all. He sighs bitterly and says that maybe he should have confessed to her earlier. Emuna listens silently. When the bell rings, the heroes understand it's time to meet the others. Yuta apologizes to the girl for starting this conversation with her and suggests leaving. Emuna thinks it's hopeless and calls the boy by name. She says she is sure he will meet that girl again and then he definitely needs to confess his feelings. Yuta agrees with her and gives his word. The hero asks Arthur how it went for them. He replies that they questioned quite a few people, but it seems people just don't want to talk about it. Then Yuta asks Aranash says everything is the same with them. The local townspeople are strangely too silent when the topic of these free bandits comes up, and it seems that in their eyes the heroes are more scoundrels than heroes. Yuta knew Thisen thought that in such a light Jin was also unlucky. Jin appears from behind and asks why the hero suddenly thinks so little of him. They actually gathered quite a lot of information about the location of their lair, about the total number, and about their leader. Yuta is amazed and cannot understand how they managed to make the locals talk. The man replies that it's all thanks to this boy, pointing to his companion. He himself is very surprised and asks again if he heard correctly. He did nothing. He only remembers how he was pounding his fists into Jin's back. Others consider this very cruel and say that he himself looks like a gangster. Jin says apparently Raider's lair is located in a cave at the foot of Mount Den. They are armed with about 30 magical mechs and led by a brave man nicknamed King Lion. The boss always wears a lion mask, hides his face, and the reasons why the bad guy needs to do this are not hard to guess. The man believes that the king's name is widely known among the people of this country. Yuta understands this could bring them trouble. Jin replies that this is only a guess and that they have a night raid planned for today. A little later, the heroes set off to a place near the third ascent of MT, Den. Jean says that the transporter will stay here. Largo and Falma will stand guard just in case, and everyone else must leave except Vera due to repairs. Largo and Falma agree. Then the man suggests they start the cleanup operation. The heroes agree and advise to finish it as soon as possible. Arthur loudly shouts who Lady Lynn Carlo is. Jean shouts at him to be quiet. This is a night raid. Yuta looks at the mechs nearby and asks Emuna how she is, how things are with the new Artemis. The girl replies that this mech is quite easy to control, no need to get used to it, so she thanks them. They tell her the mech is hers, just taken for temporary use. The girl replies again that it is quite easy to control, no need to get used to it, it is only for temporary use. Then Yuta recalls and asks what Rizam meant when he said the mech's armor is too special. They are about to answer, but they are stopped. The heroes notice guards in magical furs. Emuna notes that there are only 2 of them, they can be dealt with quickly. The hero replies, no, if they are planning a full-scale raid on them, it is still too early to appear. Then the girl asks, give her this so she can show Artemis to him in all her beauty. She activates her power and shows Blackout. Yuta is incredibly surprised. This is the whole trick of this mech. Aruna sees his reaction and says it's really cool. In the darkness, the mech is almost invisible. The guards notice Emin too late and don't even understand where the strike came from. Something emerges from the darkness in front of the second sentry and hits the top of the mechanism. While the fur is already lying down, a question emerges from it. Was the invisible enemy real? Right now Eminus is standing guard. The heroes talk about what happened. They analyze the camouflage. Because of it, the enemy didn't even have time to react. And now they think there will be no problems during the raid on the storage. Panic has started in the storage. They shout that communication with the guard is lost and demand someone be sent to check. Someone heard that some guys were spying in the city, while others don't understand why they only found out about it now. King Leo, who silently watched everything, orders everyone to take up arms. When the explosion breaks out, the robbers no longer have time to do anything. Aruna asks to ignore the infantry, their main goal is to destroy their mechs. Yuta agrees, he will go to the center and give the flanks to her. The heroes rush forward, the bandits shout that the enemy is already here. At this moment, Yuta gathered strength and attacked the bandit mech, destroying it. So he strikes blow after blow. The hero destroys the magical mechanisms with one strike. The enemy standing a little further whispers, who are they? Damn it. They are too strong. Someone else asks the leader what they should do. Yuta found himself facing the last 3 opponents. The Lion King asks if these are the personal troops of Duke Halamla. The hero replies sharply, no, he is not one of them. He is only a mercenary. He was hired to deal with the bandits in exchange for the Duke's services. The leader asks again. And he wonders if this means there is room for negotiations, so perhaps they will be agreed upon first because it might turn out to be beneficial. Aruna apologizes, saying they are not going to negotiate with the raiders, and then the Lion King rushes into battle to the death. Yuta interrupts the conversation and asks them to wait at least a minute. The townspeople's position regarding the bandits still causes concern, so he really advises first listening to what the chief has to say. At this moment, the Lion King steps out of his costume and says that first of all, he wants to thank them. The hero is surprised by these words. The man continues. He thanks them for the chance to explain himself and values it highly. The Lion King recalls that they admitted they were a little worried because of the situation in the city and that partly it was their fault. He says that 20 years ago these lands still belonged to the country of Stuttgart, despite the small area of the territory. The relations between the royal family and the people were trusting. It was a glorious country. And one day intrigues and the cruel politics of the young, ambitious Duke Halamla overturned everything. The young and beautiful queen had to become a hostage of Melteria, the king was killed, and ordinary people began to suffer from taxes that kept increasing. The queen, taken captive, was forced to respond to the feelings of Duke Karen, who was consumed by her beauty. As a result, they had 2 children, but she herself died a few years ago. Land. Arthur adds that Duke Karen is the father-in-law of Prince Musham. Then the Lion King says that the queen sincerely loved the people of Stuttgart, and even, lying in a fever from illness, thought about what she could do for them. Aruna is very surprised. It turns out that the head is closely connected to her. He says he leaves it to speculation. And then he repeats, overall, it is quite a sad story. They only wanted to protect their people and those, in turn, hid and secured them. Yuta summarizes, they listened to them and now understand that these are not just robbers on the highway. But even so, they cannot let down their employer. The leader asks if they want to keep hunting him. The heroes whisper among themselves. Aruna says that is definitely so, isn't it? Yuta objects. He came up with a better solution. These words greatly surprised the Lion King. The heroes report to the Duke that they deprived the bandits of division. The man asks the unparalleled knights what to do with this. Yuta explains, they simply do not pity the enemies, so they just remove them all. The Duke asks again if he understood correctly. Only a pile of mutilated furs was laid at his feet, although they really resembled those belonging to these attackers, and there were many of them. But he doubts that it is time to celebrate victory. The hero asks him to forgive, but he must immediately inform the employer. The Duke nods guiltily. Jean rejoices, mostly it worked, he says this to King Leo, or rather, to Lord Theseus. Yamka repeats the name. Jin replies that this name is known in this country. The bandit leader removes his mask, says he is glad to meet you, and names himself. He is Theseus, the legitimate son of Duke Charon. Hero. The hero responds in kind, and only then does it become clear to him that story was the interlocutor's past. Jin says all this is wonderful, but they must not forget about their agreement. Tessie agrees with him. In exchange for his release, he promises them the voice of Duke Charon in the fight for the throne. And also, if they can arrange a secret meeting with Crown Prince Yuden, he will pay them 200 million gold. The man quietly snorted and promised Prince Theseus that he would do everything for that amount. Aruna noted that it sounds great if they get that voice. Lin Carlo will definitely be pleased. The heroes head to the residence of Duke Charon. Yuta asks which grave exactly they have come to. Theseus leans over the tombstone and replies that it is his mother. He asks his mother to wait a little, that way he will save the people from Shaker, and then Yuta notices something incredible. A man approaches them, Duke Charon. He says that a lot of time has passed since his son was here. And immediately he asked his parents for 200 million gold. He would like to see what the parents' faces would look like if he asked for the same. Theseus asks permission to introduce his father, Count Charon, to the heroes. The man is very glad to meet them. The boy says that these guys are excellent writers. The Duke notices that his son did not say that and orders, then let them work for their family. Theseus asks not to take away his new friends. Charon again starts the conversation and asks if he understood correctly. His son wanted to talk about the succession to the throne. Theseus confirms, although it will be a bit difficult. The heroes head to the royal capital of the kingdom of Melteria. Lin approaches Yuta and says that everything happened too quickly. Now she wondered how it all turned out that way. Jin replied that everything is fine. Duke Hulm will promise to vote for Yuta. The hero recalled that he wanted to arrange a meeting with Prince Yuta for someone. The princess asked again. Theseus appears from the side. He tells Princess Lin Carlo that they have not seen each other for a long time. The girl recognizes him and now understands that he was the one who asked for a private meeting. At that moment, with tears in his eyes, Arthur runs up to her and greets her. The girl stops him and asks to call Crown Prince Yuden and do it immediately. The boy shouts that he is already running to carry out the order. Lin asks if the room is suitable for the writers meeting under Theseus. The man fully trusts her choice but does not understand why there is so much fuss over a single personal meeting. Since Prince Mushim is his son-in-law, meeting the Crown Prince in public would be an embarrassing failure. Crown Prince Yuden enters the room, greets Prince Theseus, and says they haven't seen each other for a long time. He also greets the interlocutor and asks him to sit down. Yuden asks what he wanted to talk about with him. Theseus says that the truth is he has a personal request to Yuden, and he wants to use this time and chance to set everything straight. The prince heir asks again, he doesn't think he can do anything. Concern. Charon's son interrupts him right now. He is not asking about this. His request is for the future when he becomes king. Yuden asks in surprise if it is correct that the son-in-law of Prince Mushoma is standing before him. Theseus confirms this, but at the same time he is also the eldest son of Duke Charon. He explains that his request to the crown prince is to unify the tax rates in Malteria and issue a decree prohibiting the persecution of people. You. Juden says he understands. He has even heard how terribly people are treated in some territories, but in this case the authority of his ducal family will also be undermined. Theseus replies that he does not deny this. He saw with his own eyes the people of the Duchy of Holomal. They are suffocated by oppression and high taxes, and the mortality from hunger is the highest in the country. As a person, he cannot accept this. The crown prince asks why he was addressed. He could have said Mushem, his brother. Theseus replies that he does not believe Prince Mushem, with his strong ties to the dukes, will accept his proposal. He spoke with his father, Duke Karen, and they are ready to make sacrifices. So he asks Crown Prince Yuden to become king and save his people. The girl calls Nagisa and says that they are going to the Emu Kingdom, so she needs to get up quickly and get ready. Nagisa asks again about the Emu Kingdom. There is no such name in the Union of Eastern Nations. Here. This is why they are heading there now. They will make an alliance with them and go against the Ruja Empire. Doesn't she understand? The king says he will go with them. The girl shouts that he won't move from his place, and the man still can't understand why. They tell him that when they meet, he and King Amu always quarrel like children. So these are beautiful girls and they will go and lay the foundation. The king asks about these beautiful girls. The girl gets angry and says they are beautiful no matter what he thinks. Nagisa thinks that they generally do not get along. The girls set off for the Emu Kingdom. The servant announces that the king is waiting for them and asks them to come inside. The girls thank him for that. King Emu greets Princess Rainal, long time no see. When he last saw her, she was still very young. Rainal repeats the answers her mother prompted her. She says she sincerely appreciates his support. The man is surprised by such words about Rulik. He asks them to sit down and start the conversation. The princess agrees and asks for forgiveness. Naturally. At this moment, Nagisa thinks that King Emo seems like a very friendly and pleasant person. She wonders why he and Majni-san get along so badly. Moreover, this smile looks exactly like that. Then the king says he does not believe it. 5 years have already passed since he really left them. Time passes so unnoticed. Princess Reynolds suggests moving on to the main topic. In truth, they were here as ambassadors of the Eastern nations, and he probably already guessed from their connections with the Ruja Empire. They came to discuss the possibility of making an alliance with him and with the Union of the Eastern nations. The king responds gloomily that he is sorry, but such a deal seems unlikely to him. Rainal does not believe what she heard. These words surprise Nagisa too. The man says that in reality everything is simple. The Emu Kingdom does not trust the alliance. The girl shouts that the relationship between the Emu Kingdom and the Empire is tense, isn't it, and then it will be mutually beneficial. The girl shouts again that in reality everything is simple. The Emu Kingdom does not trust the alliance. The king agrees with her but says that the alliance of Eastern nations forced the fourth country to secede in a short period. The princess replies, this is probably the strategy of the state of Ruijia. The man was not sure that it was really so. No matter how great the Ruijia Empire was, he did not believe they had enough strength to break the alliance in such a short time. It is very likely that there are accomplices inside the Union. The girl tries to deny it, but the king interrupts her. He asks if the Union is really so good that it can be trusted unconditionally. Rainal does not know what to answer. The king says, in any case his answer will not change, he said. He says with a serious face that whether the enemy is his enemy or not does not matter. Nagisa notices that the atmosphere around her has changed, so this is what the serious Queen Emu looks like. Where did that noble king with his noble face go? Then she notices his eyes. She says aloud, now it is clear to her that this man was in love with Ruli Hassan. The princess returns to Nagisa and King Emu also notices the girl. It terrifies her to madness. The man stands up and looms over her, asking her name. She replies, my name is Kusado Nagisa. The king gloomily asks why she thinks so. Nagisa replies that when he spoke about Ruli Hassan there was kindness on his face. After these words, the princess yells at her companion, saying that she is rude to the king, so she must apologize immediately. Nagisa keeps insisting that she knows this facial expression very well, and the girl herself thinks she remembers it because she has seen it up close more than once. She remembers how Yui reflected in Yudo's eyes, only that very same look when you see a person you love very much. The man falls silent for a moment and quietly asks why women see through men so easily. The king begins to cry and admits, of course, he loved Rulika. The princess looks at this with surprise. King Emu asks to bring Magni here. He wants to continue the conversation about an alliance with him. Reinal does not understand this. Earlier he said he could not trust them. However, this concerns the union of Eastern nations, and this is a completely different story, unlike the kingdom of Amuria. He is forced to admit he became a bit sarcastic simply because this is the country of his rival in love. How can he not trust the country from which came the woman he loved and her daughter? Princess Reinal says that the union's Vatra passed without any incidents, that they both reconciled, and that thanks to this, Amuria's security is guaranteed. She thanks Nagisa, saying everything happened thanks to her. The girl replies that she did nothing, or rather, nothing for which she could be punished. She does not finish speaking when a loud knock sounds at the door. The girls are seized by fear. They enter the room and see the kings fighting on the floor. The princess is angry and shouts at them so fiercely that the children freeze, even the windows crack. Night falls. Magini says that under any circumstances, thanks to this, the Eastern Alliance and Amur will now be safe. Princess Reinal notes, according to King Emu, there is a traitor inside the alliance, so they cannot relax. The king agrees but does not understand why anyone would betray them. A hum is heard. They are told that there is a landslide ahead. It looks as if it is not an accident but the work of people. Reinal repeats, is he really talking about this? She is interrupted. The radar detected an enemy 20 mech ahead. The princess shouts, who are they? She is answered that it is unknown because all national identification marks are hidden. Reinal turns to Nagisa and asks what needs to be done. The princess apologizes and says that this will be the companion's first combat mission. Nagisa, horrified, replies that she cannot. She is asked to compose herself. Las Bella, Idante, and Basim announce they are ready for use. The princess asks about her lair. It turns out this magical mech is currently undergoing major repairs and cannot be used. The men call Nagisu and congratulate her on her first defeat. The girl recognizes Jutta and Delphin. The blonde asks her not to push too hard but just to keep a pace that is comfortable for her. The dark-haired man asks to show them the results of her training. The girl is silent for a moment, then with a forced smile says she will do it. She enters Las Bella, turns it on, and shouts that she is leaving there. She comes outside with doubt. The girl begins the fight thinking that this is exactly what a real battle looks like. They do not use training swords here. They do not learn and spare no one. Then that boy shouts that one mech is rushing straight to her. She had calculated all this, but when their own lives are at stake, their own lives are in danger. The girl is drowning in memories. The teacher explained to them, in Aikido there is no limit to the number of techniques. Of course there are basic techniques, but they will talk about what lies beyond their mastery. Yuta asked if that meant they had already mastered Aikido. After that, Nagisa silently called him a fool. The teacher explained that this is not true. He gave an example. What will happen if the enemy has weapons, or if there are more of them, or if they find themselves in some other situation. As long as the opponent looks human, you have only one option: crush him or throw him off. The teacher showed this technique in Utah. He explained if they follow the enemy's movements, they can come up with ways to suppress him. Then Yuta shouted with delight. The teacher executed it so masterfully. Nagisa remembers the words, even movements she hasn't learned yet become natural as if she were a professional. She takes a stance now she fully understands. She must crush. The girl defeats the first mech. Then the second she orders herself not to get distracted and to calm her thoughts as she did during Zazen. At that moment she draws a blade. The fluffy man's eyes flash with impatience. It is not so well known, but Aikido also includes sword techniques. Her father, strong and stern, once said he could not compare to her when it comes to fencing techniques, so she is confident. The guys are talking about how many victories they have taken so far. Dolphin calls out to Jude and says he has 3. He laughs, saying that when he finishes it will be 4. Others meanwhile count 5, 7, 6, 7, 8, 9. The guys are surprised that the mechs are disappearing somewhere. The dark-haired one turns to Nagisa and asks how she is. She also says that the 10th fell into her hands, each one. Everyone sees that Nagisa is incredible, but no one understands where this blue-white aura around Las Bella came from. They have never seen anything like it before. At that moment, Nagisa turns to them and asks if they completed the mission. The day of voting for the heir to the throne comes to the kingdom of Malteria. The Prime Minister announces that Duke Karen has not yet arrived, but the time has come, so they begin voting. For each voter, the method of voting is 1. To drop into the ballot box a sign with the name of the candidate. It is not surprising that this is a very important vote to determine the next king, whether Prince Musum or Prince Yuden. He asks you to weigh the choice as carefully as possible. Blur hints that the voting should start with the second Prince Baldero. He agrees. He stands up and declares he is sure they do not need a weak king. The country needs an undisputed ruler, so he is for Musum. Next is the first princess, Rudrid. She says she chooses the king who will bring peace to the country, so she votes for Yuden. Then the second princess, Lindella, appears. She decides that the kingdom ruled by Yuden sounds boring, so she chooses Musum. The third is Princess Lincarlo. The girl stands up and says the ruler of the kingdom must be able to understand others' feelings, and that is Yuden. The next vote is for Prince Musum. Duke Ladamart votes for Prince Yuden. Duke Barolma also casts his vote for Prince Yuden. Yuden thinks now Musum has 3 votes and Yuden has 4, and he happily realizes that the heir holds the lead. If everything goes as it should, only 2 votes remain and then Yuden will win. Blur announces next Duke Halamel, and the hero notices a strange expression on his face. The man says that after long consideration he decided to vote for the king who will make the country richer, and that is not Prince Yuden. Yudo exclaims in surprise, Musum smiles boldly, and the duke votes for Musum. He starts laughing and banging on the table, says Linacarlo that the fight is already over, and then tells Yuden that he himself will be the next king. The princess notices that Duke Karen has not yet voted. Musum says that he is sorry, but he has already ensured that the duke's vote is on his side. Everyone knows Karen's character well. This man keeps his word. He has already promised to vote for him. You cannot believe this. Lane thinks that Duke Karen is exactly that, a master of his words. But then what is Theseus's task? They barely finish agreeing. It is announced that Duke Karen has arrived. The door opens and Musum and the others did not expect anyone to enter at all. It turns out to be Theseus. He is holding a folder in his hands. Musum asks him what he is doing here. Theseus looks gloomily at the prince. Theseus first hands over the inheritance certificate from the family, which his father has already signed, and then replies that from today he himself is Duke Karen. Musum hits the table in despair. The prince insults the new duke and he, ignoring it, says that he wants a world where there is peace, where everyone is equal and no one is under pressure. At that moment he drops a note into the ballot box. Theseus thinks that as king, there is no way Prince Musum can do this. The prince humiliates this boy again and shouts that this is unforgivable. Lin exclaims in response that everything was decided by a fair vote and the result is obvious. Prince Yuden is elected king. Musum does not give up. He demands that she be silent because he alone is the main one here and Yuden is a nobody. The minister tries to calm him down and he demands that she accept this decision since the result was clearly determined. Prince Musum pulls out a knife and says that Blur must not give him orders, then he stabs the blade into the neck. The man who was interrupted mid-word asks what the prince is doing. The others freeze in shock. Musum repeats Blur's words that to acknowledge the decision is first and foremost his own inability, because of which the prince ended up in such a situation. At this time, Yuta cannot believe in the death of the prime minister. The prince asks Lin Carlo if she thought he was unprepared in case he lost the vote. He sends away his personal soldiers, declares the vote invalid, and demands that they deal with the Juden. The third princess does not lose her head. She grabs her brother's hand and runs away. Jin shouts at her to get out of here as quickly as possible along with the crown prince. Aruna does not understand how they can escape. It seems the prince has already taken control of the castle. Lin suggests heading to the underground hangar, where her Odin should be. When they reach the place, she freezes in confusion. Her Odin is gone too, and each of them, every single one. Prame Ikshuam appears and says he feels sorry for her. He knew they would want to break out of here, so he moved all the furs in advance. Now they are no better than rats in a cage. He already told her simply because her Ruta value was a bit higher. She must not be arrogant. The heroes begin to retreat. Jin does not understand what to do next. The opponents are increasing. The third princess replies that they have to keep their distance. Yuta draws their attention. He points at the fur and asks if he is a slave. The girl says that this fur is Ruzex, the hero who founded the kingdom, their national treasure, Victulf. But even with her Rudia value of 48,000, she cannot activate it, and it annoys her terribly. Yuta realizes that this is a hopeless option for them. Jin shouts that it is not impossible and that it will be easy and quick for the hero to get there. The boy disagrees. Did they really forget that the level of his weapon is 2? Lin and Jin exclaim in surprise. He hits the same one with words, but does he really still, after all, believe that the value of his weapon is only 2? Yuta rubs his battered back and begins to get up. He says that if he remembers correctly, the situation is similar to the first time he used Arleo. The cabin is the same, and he doesn't believe he can actually move it now. Because if this doesn't work, his friends will be caught by Mushim and most likely killed. The hero places his hand on the panel and continues to wish for the fur to move. Viktorov actually flares up, all the heroes freeze in shock, and Mushim shouts that this is simply impossible. How could Victolf activate the girl? The girls look around in surprise at what happened. Mushim continues to shout that Viktorov cannot move. Yuta is glad that he can control the mech but doesn't know what to do without weapons. He counts the opponents and firmly decides whether he can handle 5 mechs without weapons. He starts moving and instantly finds himself next to the enemy, who doesn't have time to understand anything. Prince Mushim also exclaims in surprise, Victor. Victor turns out to be moving too fast. The wool is capable of destroying the enemy with a single blow. It shatters into pieces. Yuta delivers several blows and, flying through walls, literally cuts through space. Jin is shocked that this is even more than he expected, and Lin simply freezes from the impact of the news. Prince Mushim is in horror, insisting that they were the pride of the Maltari Highlighter fleet. He is confident 3 of them can be defeated with 1 strike, and the princess replies that this is natural because Viktorov is ahead. The girl notes, according to legends, the mech requires a rudia value of 200,000 to activate. Among other mechs, it has no equal. Jin, in shock, asks if this is about 200,000. Could it mean that Yuta has it? Lin interrupts and confirms his thought. That was exactly expected from the pilot she allowed to defeat her. The value of uranium ore from Yuta most likely exceeds the capabilities of modern instruments. Its worth is simply staggeringly colossal. At that moment, the hero releases the steering wheel. He did not expect the mech to be more sensitive than Arleo. Because of this, the young man misses. However, not a trace remains from the enemy's blade. Mushim watches in horror as the axe cracks and breaks. The soldier says it's dangerous here. He asks to retreat and leave everything to the others, those in the rear ranks outside. At that moment, Jin shouts to Yuta that Arthur is already on the transporter, so they need to get out of here. The hero agrees and opens the door. When the heroes exit, they suddenly realize an ambush has already been prepared here. Yuta asks to wait a bit, now he will clear the way. The man grabs the handrail. Lin shouts that this elevator is fixed on the rails, asks to wait, but the hero interrupts her. He has already raised the platform. Yuta shouts for everyone to step aside and throws the platform at them. Then he throws all the furs off the bridge. The hero turns to his friends and says that he has cleared the way for them. The genius notes to himself, the liberation was harsh. The man worries about the transporter, so he suggests they move as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, the other part of the team is under fire from mechs. Now they are the ones attacking. Emina notices. She does not understand what is happening. Nanami promises to protect this place until everyone returns, and the one behind the wheel sees the mech rushing at full speed. This is Yuta. He happily shouts that he sees friends and says that everything is fine with them. But at that moment, Nanami attacks him. The hero tries to stop her. He almost cries and rejoices that the girl can do such a thing. He tries again to get her attention, but she does not hear him and resorts to force. The boy did not expect this at all. Nanami happily says that he has been caught. Emuna is horrified. Nanami's strike has no effect. The girl shifts her gaze to Jin. He says that Yuta is in fur, so there is no need to shoot. Nanami looks at this in surprise and sees that it is Yuta. Now she is concerned about what kind of fur he has. The hero does not know how to explain everything, so he promises to tell later. First, they need to get to the carrier. Jean calls Lisa. She asks what happened and hopes that he has a good reason to distract her. The man says he will explain later and asks her to prepare. They will start as soon as they return. Jean thinks that they always complicate everything and then notices the radar. Yuta sees it right in front of him. Aruna asks the hero if this is not amazing. Ahead of them, a multitude of mechs. Yuta thinks, with such a number, they are unlikely to protect the carrier again. The hero orders everyone to get on the carrier and go out first, and he himself will stay to hold off the opponents. The same ones sneak up again and again. The heroes do not understand what Yuta was going to do. It is dangerous. The man says that everything is fine, he will just distract them from the carrier a little. Nanami says, if he dares to do that. Then she will stay too. Yuta surprisingly withdraws his hand and tries not to drop it. The girl explains that if they leave him alone, he will again thoughtlessly spread rumors. The boy continues to insist that it is dangerous. Nanami asks if he does not trust her combat skills. The heroine believes that she is right. Her moves were stunning. He apologizes aloud and says he will be glad to accept her help. Jean asks if they have finished the conversation and asks the others to board. They are already taking off. The man turns and tells Yuta and Nanami to be careful. The hero must properly protect the girl. Nanami also asks others to be careful in response and says see you until they gather at Duke Karen's estate. Yuta suggests now dealing with the opponents. The fur tears from the scream that the carrier is flying away. He orders not to let them go. They must be caught up with, but immediately he is grabbed from behind. Then Yuta attacks the soldiers. The others do not have time to understand what happened and why the mech suddenly broke loose. The hero shouts to Nanami to use the enemy's steam valve and block their view. The girl understands. In other words, she just needs to cut them into pieces. The boy confirms this. Nanami attacks the soldiers again. They shout that she is running towards them. The attack happens lightning fast. The opponents understand. They have lost sight of the heroes again. Yuta thinks that if they do not distract them well enough, they will definitely continue to pursue the fairmen. He shouts to Nanami that they need to run downwind. She likes the loudness of his voice and she agrees. A lot of time has passed since this boy was left alone with Nanami. It makes one nostalgic. He asks the boys to be careful. For some time they will be apart, so they definitely need to meet at the estate of Duke Karan. Others at this moment are heading to the duchy. Emuna hears explosions and asks Aruna if she also thinks they are all right. She replies, Yuta is still there, so there is nothing to worry about. And as soon as Emuna notices this, her interlocutor tightly squeezes her hands from overwhelming emotions. The blonde immediately understands. Aruna is not very frank with herself. Finally, everyone reaches the residence of Duke Karan. They are greeted by the former duke. He asks if they are all right. He had no idea that Musham would go this far. Lin replies that he is fine, only his son was captured. The man begins to worry about Theseus. The princess excuses herself. She supposedly wanted to take him with her, but they could only pull out Yuden. The prince also begins to apologize for his weakness. The man says it's all right. Musham cannot take the duke's life. Here, a servant bursts into the room and begs for forgiveness. The duke is surprised. He currently has guests, but the one who entered insists it is extremely urgent. He reports with horror that there has allegedly been a massive invasion of mechs from the kingdom of Malteria, about 500 units. The former duke still remembers Prince Musham darkly, calls him a lying thief, and orders to summon the entire army. Even if he is his son-in-law, he will have to teach him a lesson. He has gone too far. Lin says that even in that case they will help. Jean does not understand what they mean. There are 500 or more furballs there, so promising that is pointless. The girl sees no problem with this. Then the man demands that she not forget and prepare a generous bonus. Aruna asks if she understood correctly, that she and Emina will be in front and Falma behind. Jean confirms, yes, that will be good, and Lord Go will protect the ballista. Then the girl suggests trying to contact Vajura. Jean agrees with her, but then Lin intervenes, asks what to do about her. Aruna did not think she would actually take part in the battle. The princess sighs. Why do they consider Yuta an ace if he is far away when she is so close? Meanwhile, Yuta continues to press forward, destroying enemy mechs. He meets Nanami and asks if these are all the pursuers. The heroes get out of the fur and that guy cannot find peace. Is the girl okay? Nanami replies that she somehow managed, but something happened. She shows the surprised hero a device. Yuta sees that it is a communicator. Nanami says it apparently fell and broke during the process. He thinks with annoyance that they will no longer be able to contact Jean, and aloud says that they must move. The lands of Duke Karan are very close now. Heroes enter there and look around in surprise at the inhabitants, covered with arrows. Yuta says that this is definitely the residence of Duke Karan. It seems they were attacked, but where did everyone go? The man is sure. Aruna and Emuna are not so easy to defeat, so he is certain that they are fine. Nanami also notices something strange. Despite a pile of debris after the battle, there is not a single mech nearby. The hero agrees with her they need additional information, so he suggests heading towards the city center. The hero nods towards the tavern and enters. While the girl enjoys the meat, the boy silently surveys the place. Only then does he hear a nearby discussion. Apparently Prince Musham used the royal army in yesterday's battle. Then the interlocutor says in surprise because their lord is the father of the prince's father-in-law. The other replies, that's why they pretended nothing happened. Probably he was so eager to get rid of the fur that he hired people to remove him. The second does not understand how and where the first has so much knowledge. He says that his brother serves in the royal army. Yuta found reasons that it was a great battle. Of course, they will boast about it. The men argue about who won. The first replies, of course, it was the royal army. Numbers decided everything. The royal army was stronger precisely in terms of numbers. The second asks if Duke Karen was killed. He is told no, the Duke fled towards the territory of Duke Lademal. All other princes are under the control of Prince Mashima. Yuto realizes he has heard enough and asks the waiter to bring him a toothpick. The man does not understand and they do not have a decorated toothbrush. Then the hero says that nothing is needed. He realized such a thing does not exist in this world. The conversation between the men continues. The first says that something strange happened. The Duke's army of mechanisms was almost not destroyed. The second does not believe how this could happen against the royal army. It is too good to be true. The first disagrees with him. He says the frontline mechs of their Duke are extremely strong, but they retreated, leaving only one mech to cover. Still, he repelled the army alone, and as soon as the others retreated, the last mech disappeared as if into the ground. The frontline mechs of their Duke are extremely strong, but they retreated, leaving only one mech to cover. The second again does not believe these words. Yuta thinks it is Emuna. He moves the chair and pushes Nanami to go. He has already figured everything out. Everyone is alive. Meanwhile, the other heroes discuss the plan. Jean notes that they managed to unite with Duke Lademan's army without any problems. Tell Linny, Duke Barolma is further ahead, they need to unite with him. The man asks if they will manage because even so they will have about 300 wagons. The princess replies that there is one thing, one of the generals of the royal army can help them. But to bribe him, she needs to meet him in person secretly, and here she suggests sneaking in together with Emina. Everyone is shocked by such a choice. The three, together with Arthur, enter the cabin. Emina grumbles, 3 in Artemis's cabin is absolutely unreasonable. Lin does not understand her. She is so fragile and Arthur can be packed very compactly. The princess orders them to move forward. Emina continues to shout that it is impossible. Lin is glad that at least she has a headrest. Emina is offended and promises to throw the princess overboard if she says that again. She asks why Arthur is following them. Her question is ignored. The princess says that the general probably knows where Odin and Centaur are kept, so why not take them if they are heading there anyway? Yuta and Nanami continue to advance on them. The hero tells the girl that one of the fighters is their ally. She understands, but how can they distinguish each other? The boy suggests doing it like this. He suddenly appears in front of the mechs and declares that they are a group of mercenaries. The invincible Iron Knights, led by Princess Lin Carlo, have arrived to help them. One of the soldiers shouts that he has heard about them. He is glad that they came to help them. Another calls them ignorant idiots, saying they dared to break the sacred oath. There will be no mercy for them. They must be taken prisoner. Yuta thanks Tago for the explanation and immediately hits him. Nanami shouts that she wants to fight too. In the forest, the crack of torn fur clothing can be heard. Then the man thanks the heroes for their help. This is exactly what he expected from the mercenary squad led by Lin Carlo, and they are clearly stronger than the rumors say. Yuta says that without their support, they would not have managed. The men introduce themselves. They are the Royal Guard, fighters of the Princess Rudria's Defenders Squad. The hero recalls that Princess Rudria is Lin Carlo's sister. The soldiers confirm this and say that, unfortunately, their princess along with other princes was captured by Musham. So they were heading towards the army of Duke Lademat. They were in the same trap and were going to ask for help. Yuta notices this. The royal army intercepted them and attacked. This happened after they left. The man says that they were supposed to meet with Duke Lademolt's army. Would they mind if they went together? The man agrees happily. He did not expect such an offer and is willing to keep the hero company. On the way, they will come across a fort where soldiers of their squad are stationed. They can stop there and replenish their strength. Yuta replies that it is nice to hear, so they will do just that. Lin announces that she is the third princess of the kingdom of Malteria and has come to meet with General Orlia. She points to one of the men and orders him to call General Orlio for her. He agrees. Lin asks Emin to be careful, this is enemy territory. The girl replies that in the worst case she will keep her tail, so let the princess be ready for that. Arthur asks the lady not to worry, he will do everything in his power to help get out. Then someone calls out to Lin. A man bursts in and shouts that this is really Princess Lin Carlo right in front of him. He thought his soldiers were mocking him. The girl greets Orlia, they haven't seen each other for a long time. The general falls to his knees and starts shouting that they really haven't seen each other for a long time. He tried to visit her many times, but she was absent every time. Days and weeks were spent searching, but he could not find her anywhere near the royal family. The man cannot express in words how much he missed her. Lin tells him that she avoided him precisely because of how he behaved. Orlia calms down and asks why the princess came here. The girl suggests going straight to the point and asks him to lend her his strength Udonto, stop the hordes of butcher troops rampaging wildly. The general understands. She wants him to betray Commander Cruz and join her side. Lin explains if he refuses, she will have to remove him from her life. The general says he is ready for anything, just not that. She knows how he feels about her if he looks at him like that. Orlia surrenders, kneels on one knee, and declares that he will dedicate his life to the princess and do everything in his power. Lin likes it. It will be enough for her if he does all he can. Negotiations begin. The princess proudly says that this is exactly what she expected from Mushem. He did not have the courage to destroy Odin. The general says the reason is that Odin and Victolf are national treasures. The princess calls her brother a coward. She sees everyone who was captured and their mechs are already being transported to the Marden base. The girl recalls that the Morton base is a small warehouse, so there is almost no military force there. Most likely, they will make it a transit point. She orders Orlia to call all his units if they are going to attack. This must be done right now. The general agrees that she is right. He will do everything. Only the man, if the princess allows, has one question left. Is it about the same thing she is thinking about? For a moment, the image of a hero flashes in the girl's eyes. Lin replies that such a person does not exist because she has other matters. General Oreo shouts that he is glad to hear that and now apologizes and, full of determination, sets off to carry out the order. Arthur shouts to Emendono that they agreed to cooperate with them so they can relax a little. Emina believes even if they become allies, vigilance must not be lost, especially considering that they were enemies not long ago. The princess asks Arthur to stop Emina. The man doubts that she will be able to rest then, as a huge man with a hammer appears behind him. The princess has no time to warn Arthur. The hammer strikes him in the back. He only manages to scream. The girls almost freeze on the spot from fear. At this time, the princess is grabbed by General Orlia. Lin does not understand how it happened. The man barely smiles. Did he really think Orlia would always be hers? Unlike her, Commander Cruz accepted him immediately. Lin begins to get angry. How could this Cruz have predicted the possible betrayal of the general? The princess shouts that she is simply a cursed witch. Orlia demands that the author quickly get off the fur and without jokes, otherwise Lin Carlo will be a head shorter. Emina silently thinks about what to do next. Everyone is tied up. The princess asks Orlia where he is taking them. The man takes a cigarette and replies that, of course, to the Mardi base. Under normal conditions, in a small warehouse base with almost no firepower, there is no better place for bait than her sister and these incompetent dukes. General Orlia is confident. The rebel army will gladly take the bait and will not even suspect that 1,000 mechs have already been deployed there. The princess becomes even more furious. The man orders everyone to load immediately. At this time, Yuta has already arrived at the fort. A soldier approaches him and reports that they have received a message from scouts. The captured Princess Rudia has already been delivered to the Marden base. The commander says that this changes everything fundamentally. The hero clarifies what exactly has changed. He is told Martin is used as a supply base, so there will probably be no more than 100 mechs defending it. He is sure that it is just a transit point. Yuta now understands everything. This is their chance to strike the opponents. The man confirms this and excitedly says that he expected this from the group led by the third princess. The guy becomes embarrassed because he is constantly praised. The Rudia army sets out for Marden base. They survey the fortress from afar and see no movement. Everything looks normal. The commander sees no problems, so this silence is surprising. The man does not understand what the hero means. The young man explains, in captivity there are so many important people that in this case it looks normal. He doubts whether it can really be so. The soldiers begin to get nervous because he claims it is a trap. Yadi's reaction surprises him. He mentally asks them not to make such faces. Because of this, it becomes increasingly difficult for him to hold back and not let them go there and to explain why Nanami went with them. In this case, the hero agrees but wants to go and examine the fur more closely. The commander is afraid he's this already too much. Yuta interrupts him. If everyone leaves, it will be bad. The trap will still work. But if he goes alone, the risk will be much lower and he will somehow manage. The commander continues to deny, sounding plausible, but the hero interrupts him again. He quickly rushes there and back. The man does not understand why the boy speaks as if he is going on a mission. She approaches the base. Silence. No patrols, nothing else. Could he really have been wrong? Then the mechs begin to emerge from their hideouts. A whole army of mechs appears before the hero. The frightened commander thinks he knew everything. It was just a trap. Yuta is also tense. There are more enemies here than he can count. Nanami begins to pray for Yuta. At this time he thinks, if they surround him, there will be no choice, he must break through. The hero shouts to Victolf that they have to do it.